at every point, a situation made even tougher by Israel's renewed offensive against Hamas.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng Department of Education says the arrest of 7 girls accused of assaulting a girl learner from Bedford View High School should serve as a deterrent to other bullies. I am on Delambana for SFM News headlines at 3:30.
In sports this hour, Hugo Bruce hails Amajita coach as the SA Under-20 football national side touches down in South Africa, and Besto to replace Shaqs at Mumbai Indians. More details at 3:30.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favourite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
The Red Devils want to wrap up the season with maximum points at Old Trafford.
Into the box, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And Mason Mount strikes again. Brilliant stuff from Manchester United.
While the Villains want to conclude their good race with a victory.
Rodgers turns and sees a knee ball into an Ollie Watkins, and he's touching it home. Ollie Watkins breaks the record. Number 75 for Watkins.
This is the bottom half versus top half Premier League clash. Catch Manchester United FC versus Aston Villa FC on Sunday 25 May at 4:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba, as they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, I'm looking at some of the visuals, and I see Sharon Bryce Pease, the SABC News correspondent based in New York, in fact, in the USA right now, Washington, obviously, because that's the center of the universe in many ways for South Africans, tomorrow, today. And there's no question that when we talk about, let's get a feel of the national pulse over the next 48 hours, that issue may well overshadow the passing of the budget finally, isn't it? Well, I mean, think about it. Here's a question to you. What can be more important in the next 48 hours than A, the passing of the budget finally, and that's Donald Trump-Ramaphosa meeting? And I wonder. My name's Ashraf Garda. Thank you for joining. This is the National Pulse. 3 hours as we get a sense of the biggest issue that moves the nation's pulse starting now. You can engage, as you know, live. Save the number. I'll take your calls just now. 086 000 2032, and then you have the option to WhatsApp. If you are sending us a voice note, 30 seconds max, please. And that WhatsApp number, 0614 104 107. You can also send us a quick text. And then do use our X platform. We tweet often enough, and you can do the same as well. When you do that, tag SFM Radio and tag me. Ashraf Garda, and do use that hashtag, the National Pulse. So we will talk about that. The Ramaphosa-Trump meeting. We'll chat, in fact, to the executive director of the FW de Klerk Foundation to get their thoughts based upon yesterday's conversation with Kaya Sitoli. So a completely different issue in terms of perspective, and let's see what comes out of that. But first things first, we have to touch on a story that in many ways reflects so much of what's wrong with our country, and we don't need Donald Trump to tell us this. We don't need anybody to tell us this. Later on, we'll talk about the deaths of those 4 young children at a crash in Mayfair. That comes up later on, Mayfair, Joburg. But today, members of the Public Service, members of the Public Servants Association, as well as political parties, have been picketing outside the Prince Mashieni Memorial Hospital in Umlazi in Durban. So why so? Well, that's following the death of the medical intern, Dr. Aluti Mazwi. That's an issue we covered last week. Remember, that's the intern who was feeling ill and who then sort of called in sick and said, I don't think I could be able to come. And he was told, apparently, that if you don't come, there could be some big issues with your round rostering, things like that. And then sadly, the person actually passed away. Well, there's been response. There's certainly been public response, understandably so. Let's get the thoughts of Mlungisi Ndlovu, who's the Public Servants Association's spokesperson in the KZN region. Mlungisi, appreciate your time, and you are now connected on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon to you and also to the listeners at home.
Thank you. Now, last week we spoke about this already, about this tragedy of this medical doctor intern who passed away after feeling ill. But that story has moved on, and moved on enough for organizations like other political parties, but in particular yours, the Public Servants Association, to actually get out and picket outside a hospital. What has happened?
Good afternoon. In actual fact, what we have done as PSA is to take this issue at the national level, because we believe that death of the medical doctor could have been prevented. The crisis that we're facing in our province, it's choking. Remember that PSA has been on record raising numbers of issues in that particular hospital where people are being charged left and right. If you submit medical certificate, it gets refused. Similar issue with Dr. Mazwi when he submitted and said he was not well. So we believe as a PSA that this tragedy is not isolated. It is a systematic of the broader collapse in ethical leadership, safe working conditions, adequate staffing within the province institution. The PSA is therefore presented an urgent memorandum. And for the first time, the department has sent the delegations, which we do appreciate, where the CEO was there, the DDG from the national level was there, and other authorities. So, but we continue to say this investigation must run concurrently. The department must run their own investigation, and we hope that health ombuds are responding so that we can be able to listen to the view and consent of our members, and to ensure that those people that are responsible for this conduct are taken to task. And we hope that the supervisor has been suspended, but it's not enough. What we're saying is that we need action. They must give us a permanent report. But also we have said in that memorandum, one, there are 16 medical officers vacancies in that hospital. We're not talking about new positions. These are the medical officers who have resigned and retired that have not been replaced. Over 60 professional nurses positions, 10 pharmacists, 8 administrative support staff, 100 specialists. So that's why we said as PSA is that they must be able to take action. We also look at Section 27 of our Constitution, which guarantee the health service to everyone. But you can't comply with Section 27 if you don't have enough staff in that particular hospital. If people are continuing to...
All right. Let me jump in with a few things, right? I mean, I think you've expressed yourself, and there's a picket. How sure are we, and I understand that the medical doctor, the medical intern had requested that he be given time off because he was not well, and that was refused, I understand. How clear are we that we can link his passing away with the fact that he actually came to work?
It's a very interesting question, because remember, when someone is sick and that person is said, give me time to be able to recover, as a supervisor, you instruct that person with medical certificate to report for duty. So we are saying there are many of us who get off sick and be able to report for duty. We are saying these are allegations. When they're allegations, it need to be tested with facts, and that's what as PSA we're going to present. It's an opportunity not only about Dr. Miles who has passed on. You also have about 28 nurses in ICU who continue to be victimized. Some of them have been in and out from hospital. So there's a relationship between the two, because if you are a medical doctor and you have studied 6 years, you know now you're starting your own career, you are being told that your rotation in terms of the internship won't be signed for you to proceed. So that's why there's allegation to say it has implication. The level of mental illness in that hospital among the workforce, it's alarming. That's why we have even said that the MEC must be able to visit so that you talk to employees. You must engage with employees because you're dealing with human beings.
Okay.
And government seem to be, the Department of Health in the province, they have not been forthcoming. It's not only Prince Msheng. You go to Dr. Isaiah Seme, PSA is representing doctors there. You go to Benedictine Hospital where one of the intern committed a suicide that relates to work. You go to NDT. There are many of these issues.
All right, so
we are saying to the department.
Yeah, carry on. You were saying to the department.
We are saying to the Department of Health, they must not see PSA as an enemy. We receive this information, we've got the recommendation, but what we are saying is that we cannot breathe anymore. Because you're receiving so many patients. If you look at the unemployed rate in KwaZulu-Natal,
I've got that. I just want to move on. All right, I just want to move on very quickly. I think you made your point right now. Just some thoughts, right? You mentioned, in that same hospital, there's been so many issues about nursing sisters, feeling aggrieved about many issues. There's been issues about somebody committing suicide. There's been other issues. So how much of this is the supervisor who made a call on another doctor who was ill, or how much of this is the culture, not just of that hospital, but all the medical hospitals? That means it's expected when you're an intern, you have to work 24 hours on the trot, 48 hours. We all hear those stories. What I'm trying to determine is this a simple case of a supervisor making a call on his or herself in terms of what they see right, or is this the norm in the medical fraternity and we are paying the price for that?
So it's not in the norms in the medical community, because the simple issue is that if you look at medical intern, there's prescribed in terms of what they should do. Medical intern are not allowed to work alone, but in that hospital, medical intern become medical officers. When they call these supervisors, it's either they Bluetooth them or they then respond. It's a bad culture in the Department of Health that need to be resolved, because this is not the only doctor, by the way, where managers refuse to accept sick note. If they question sick note, there are processes in terms of the law. You raise an important issue in terms of the organizational culture, whether in the public sector in general, do they understand what values is accepted? Because most of the managers do not undergo training in terms of how do you deal with people, because the environment is very toxic due to the workload that you receive. If you look at that hospital alone, it's a regional hospital with 18 clinics. They service over 800,000 population, but in one district you find that they've got more hospitals. So it's a systematic failure where leaders need to accept and say enough is enough. So, as PSA, we're saying we must be able to do something.
All right. Now, we've chatted often enough to different ministers of health. Of course, the latest one is Minister Aaron Motsoaledi in the past, and he's often spoken about the fact that, yes, there's huge issues of shortages of medical doctors, and there's just no money to fund them. It's something we'll talk about when it comes to budgets sometime today and tomorrow for sure about that anyway. So just in conclusion then, in terms of your picket and therefore your demands, do I take it that the demand is not just linked to one hospital, but in fact to the National Health Department as a whole? That means there's something wrong in our health system in general that must be fixed. And if so, what are you actually demanding?
So, in actual fact, you're quite correct that this issue is not only an isolated case in KZN. You might have heard many news about Tembisa Hospital and other hospitals with these particular challenges. We have done well in terms of improvement at the beginning of 1994, but we believe that we have dropped the ball. Even the minister need to be able to do the assessment in terms of what needs to happen, because in our view as PSA is that you cannot cut staff in the Department of Health Essential Services if you don't give them budget. Where are they going to give this particular budget? Because the department are not there to make profit, but at the same time you need to find way how do you manage the issues of budget. And PSA has also been in lockout fighting for the doctors who are unemployed. You still have over 100 doctors who are
Can I ask you something very quickly before we wrap up? Very quick answer. Is the family themselves looking to take any legal action? And if so, is there going to be support from organizations like the PSA and others? Just very quick answer.
So unfortunately, I won't be able to respond for the family. But what we have seen, the people who were there today, like PA, for example, they said on record that they're going to take legal actions to support them. But on the side of PSA, for our members, we are engaging with our legal division to advise us in terms of the legal opinion, how do we move forward, because there are certain rights that need to be enforced. And PSA is the right organization, not only for KZN, for the entire country, to take the lead of the workers without fear and favors.
And that's where we can leave it to Mlungisi Ndlovu, the Public Servants Association spokesperson in KZN. This in response to the passing away of a medical doctor, Dr. Aluluti Mazwi, who turned in sick at a hospital and then died anyway. Tragedy, real tragedy.
As a medical doctor, I've dedicated my life to helping others. Being a regular blood donor, I was shocked to learn of my low hemoglobin levels, which prompted further investigations. My diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome meant that my only chance of survival would be through a stem cell transplant. Finding a match was easier for me than for most patients. However, not everyone is so lucky. If you are between the ages of 17 and 55 years, register with dkmsafrica.org to become a stem cell donor and give someone out there a lifeline. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Do you want to study towards a tertiary qualification but need a flexible study schedule? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning qualifications offer just that. Our distance learning support is designed for your success. 2025 applications to Stadio's range of high-quality, affordable qualifications are now open. Distance learning qualifications are available in law, administration and management, commerce, teacher education, policing, law enforcement, humanities, and information technology. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Extraordinary doesn't just happen. It's built, brick by digital brick. With every connection, every innovation, every leap forward. A cloud that scales with your vision. Security that earns your trust. AI that empowers smarter decisions. IoT that connects what truly matters. Connectivity that bridges every gap. We're not just building technology, we're building the future of South Africa. Stronger businesses, thriving communities, a nation connected, empowered, and ready to lead. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Vodacom Business. Further together.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right, buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's by the way, talking about medical doctors, we're going to chat in the feature we call Winning with Dr. Mabiche Jackie Rampere, a medical doctor turned entrepreneur. Real fascinating story. But for now, perhaps the biggest interest has got to be on what's happening in the USA, isn't it? President Donald Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa meeting tomorrow. Different people have different perspectives. We had this fascinating interview yesterday with that we had and listen to that as a podcast with Kaya Sitoli, right? So just check that out. I've tweeted about it, but go to the SAFM website. You'll find it anywhere. In the meantime, let's get another perspective, this time from the F.W. de Klerk Foundation. With me is Christo van der Riede, who's the Executive Director of the Foundation. Christo, much appreciate your time here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to all of your listeners.
Thank you. I mean, what I saw very interesting in terms of my notes regarding the Foundation's take on this one is that what matters, and I'm quoting, is that it must benefit both South Africa and the USA, and therefore it should be from both sides rather than engaging in trivial domestic issues. What do you mean by the engaging in trivial domestic issues?
Well, the current narrative is dominated by Donald Trump's assertion that there is genocide in the country, lots of other terrible things happening, that Afrikaners are persecuted, that land is confiscated, and so forth. And none of those things are happening. And we've made it very clear from the Foundation side that this kind of narrative that is being peddled by right-wing groups from South Africa and also elements within the United States, that they must stop with it. And that's why we said that it's trivial in our opinion, and that the focus should be on what is in the best interest of the USA and South Africa in terms of trade and also in terms of geopolitical matters.
But seriously speaking, I know different people have said different things about it. Can two different countries or two different political leaders, right, truly engage tomorrow on the issues of trade as if the domestic issue of one country, as in, they're committing acts of genocide there, as if it never happened? I mean, how do you ignore that in any of your conversations?
Well, and that's the very important part and the kind of leadership that one would expect of our president is to engage one-on-one with his counterpart, and perhaps it's not something that we would want to see on full display in front of people, because we've seen how terribly wrong it has gone for Zelensky. But that the facts be laid bare and a proper, discussion is being held. Whether that's possible, that remains to be seen. But I think President Ramaphosa should not allow himself to be pushed into a corner and to be exposed and to be slaughtered like Zelensky in public. I think he should be adamant to say we can have a conversation about these matters that you've raised, but we do so, privately, man to man. But that in public we focus on, the big matters, trade, the importance of peace, etc.
Okay, but that makes the assumption that when President Ramaphosa talks to President Trump, that they would speak to each other, I wouldn't even say as equals, but logically, and the general consensus across the board is very little of what Donald Trump has said since his inauguration into office for the second coming has been logical. And I can think of so many examples. So meaning when someone is not engaging with you in the same logic, how then do you get him to understand your way of thinking and convince him logically?
Well, and I think this is one would really, bet on the strengths of President Ramaphosa. He is a seasoned negotiator. He is a leader who can stand up on his own. I think he has a lot of the proverbial trump cards to play. And I think that he should actually use to his strength. My big worry, obviously, as you've said, that Trump has the ability to just shoot cannons in any direction. But I think our president has the capability and the ability to dodge those bullets and make sure that he brings our points across and obviously focus on his big role as the chairperson of the G20. I think he has the stature, international stature, and he has, as I've said earlier, particular trump cards, which he should use to his strengths.
So let's talk about the trade part that your organization talks about. So in focusing on the trade, what would be the big win for President Ramaphosa, and how then does he maneuver to negotiate that big win?
Well, remember, in South Africa, there's considerable amount of American companies that operate here, 600 of them. And I think we would like to give Donald Trump the assurance that there's no plans to nationalize these companies. There's no plan to confiscate their land. And I think these companies can attest to that. And secondly, these companies are big job creators, but it also creates a massive dividend for the United States in terms of profits that are being generated and then channeled back to the United States to stakeholders or to shareholders over there. I think that's the first thing. The second thing, we have a massive, amount of minerals that is being exported to the United States in the region of $10 billion per annum. And funny enough, Donald Trump did not subject our minerals to his tariffs and the tariff hike that he has imposed on South Africa. In fact, that 30% is more applicable now on our commodity industry and on our agricultural industry, and I think that it should be a big worry for us.
Okay, so let's end with
and
this.
And then the other thing is...
Okay, quickly, yeah.
Yeah, very important. South Africa has a very strategic military position. A military position being compromised in any way.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Lots to consider coming out of that conversation with Christo van der Reede, the Executive Director at the F.W. de Klerk Foundation. So here's the thoughts to all of us, right? When President Ramaphosa engages with President Donald Trump tomorrow, what is President Ramaphosa's great leverage as a person, and what is South Africa's great leverage as a country, in spite of some of the other, deficits that we're well aware of in terms of what's been going on? I wonder what you think about that. Let's get to the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Department of Home Affairs says it has no legal obligation to formulate legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals in South Africa. The department was updating the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on issues of state-funded legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals. The Gauteng Department of Education says the arrest of 7 girls accused of assaulting a girl learner from Bedford View High School should serve as a deterrent to other bullies. And it has emerged that U.S. President Donald Trump's real estate company is looking to build a tower in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. At the same time, the Vietnamese government is in talks with the United States about how to avoid pushing tariffs. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Midrand has roadworks with traffic restrictions between Olifantsfontein Road and New Road, and on the R21 northbound in Kempton Park, roadworks with traffic restrictions towards the R23 Benoni exit reported. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle near Sabaya Drive exit, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before Gateway, and on the M7, queuing traffic reported at South Coast Road. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound in Mitchells Plain has flooding reported at Samora Machel. Strand Road eastbound in Stickland, slow moving towards the R300 highway, and the M5 southbound, slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So once in a while, you go to the airport, mainly OR Tambo, and there's a sense of euphoria. And that happened again today.
It definitely did. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, the under-20 football national team have officially landed in the country with their trophy. A number of fans were at the OR Tambo to welcome them back. Also, Banyana coach Dr. Desiree Ellis, Bafana coach Hugo Bruce, and Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi were amongst the dignitaries in attendance. And Bruce did not waste time to praise Amajita coach Raymond Daka.
First of all, like everyone, I have to congratulate Coach Raymond for the fantastic job he did in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It was nice to see. I followed nearly every game. And I have to congratulate you, Coach, for, first of all, the motivation you gave on that team. When you saw them playing, they were motivated, they wanted to do a big result. I have to congratulate you for the tactical moves you learned and for the fantastic mentality they showed on the field. So I think you did a very great job to bring this trophy here to South Africa.
Well, Bruce also had some advice for the players.
Always to congratulate the team. And you know, guys, achieving the top is easy, but staying on the top, it's so much more difficult. Everything starts now for you. You're on the crossroads. Or you take the right direction, and we see you back in the next months, next year, in Bafana, in big teams, maybe here in South Africa, or maybe abroad, or you take the other way, and that's the wrong way. So it's up to you now to get every opportunity to have a nice life for the next 10, 12 years as a professional football player, and believe me, it's the nicest profession you can imagine. But you still have to work very hard in the next months. And certainly, guys, take the right lifestyle.
Some nice, wise words to the players. I can only imagine the motivation that is going to seep in the players who eventually want to play for Bafana Bafana. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates continue live without Jose Rivera today when they visit SuperSport United in the Betway Premiership at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. Kickoff at 7:30. It's a dead rubber for the Buccaneers, who have already guaranteed the second spot finish in the league. While for Matsatsanza, it's a season to forget as they find themselves deep in the relegation. They're 14th on the log with 26 points, level with Cape Town City, who are 15th. So all points will definitely come in handy to stay clear of that playoff spot. In the Premier League, Pep Guardiola says that Manchester City's final 2 Premier League matches are massive, but if they don't qualify for the Champions League, then they won't have deserved to. City face Bournemouth tonight. With the win today and at Fulham next weekend will be enough to secure a place in the top 5, but currently they're outside of the Champions League qualification places. In the other fixture tonight, Crystal Palace, who are still in celebration mood from the FA Cup, they take on Wolves tonight, and kick-off is at 9 p.m. In cricket, Casalaga will be the official team sponsor for the Proteas men for the duration of the ICC Test Championships final from the 11th to the 15th of June. The brand will be on the sleeve of the Proteas playing kit. Meanwhile, England wicket-keeper batter Johnny Bairstow will replace compatriot Will Jacks at Mumbai Indians if they qualify for the playoff stages of the India Premier League. Now, Jacks is expected to return to England to play in the one-day series against the West Indies, which starts on the 29th of May. In tennis, the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center will undergo an $800 million upgrade, with the project set to be completed by the 2027 US Open. And that's it from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
And that build up to that World Test Championship final, well, it's coming up soon, eh? Yeah. Where's the team? Do you know? Are they in South Africa? Are they in London already?
No, not yet. They're still in the country. And right now it's all about building up to that big one, which is the final, and just seeing how they're going to do there.
Sure, I just want us to win. Seriously. I don't care how
Crossing
they
fingers.
win. Even if there's 3 days of rain and they play only one inning and somehow they call that one inning the winner. I don't know, whatever it is. I want us to win. No.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with OUTsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real OUTsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the OUTsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
You are listening to Night Talk.
Taxi violence in South Africa has a long history. Why has violence and the taxi industry in South Africa become so inextricably tied?
And it's a problem that has been happening, at least since the late 80s when the industry was still regulated. And in actual fact, I would like to just regard it as an industry that has deep historical roots in terms of the violence, dates back to the apartheid era, and also one of the things that I've recognized through my research over the years is actually what I call the state's failure to integrate the industry into the formal transport system, which continues to operate under stiff competition among between taxi associations.
Dr. Siyabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at Fort Hare University.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, whenever we have the opportunity, we focus on people who are winning in their game, winning at whatever they do, and that's the case today with Dr. Mabiche Jackie Rampedi, who's a medical doctor turned entrepreneur. It's interesting on the basis of the conversation we had earlier on, right? So let's bring in then the medical doctor turned entrepreneur. Dr. Rampedi, much appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. So you have a fascinating journey. I mean, first as the medical doctor, but then understood at some stage that you had to move on from being a doctor to basically owning a lot more equity in the health spaces. Tell me what happened.
I must just say I'm still a doctor, right? And I remain a doctor at heart, for the rest of my life. That's my primary satisfaction. But nevertheless, I think the whole thing started with, the communities that we serve. I'm in areas of Soshanguve, Pretoria North, and you look at the patients and you find the services that they need to augment whatever that you can do. They need to go far and all that. That's where the whole thing started. And I started to investigate how can we bring the services closer to the people rather than having to send people away.
Mm-hmm.
And we know from medicine that psychosocial support augments the pharmaceutical support, that whatever that we can give you. But if you don't have family closer to you, if you don't have the loved ones close to you, supporting you, those drugs could actually take longer or not even work because your mental state is not looked after.
Absolutely. So having identified the problem, then what did you do?
Then I had to investigate to say, what can I do in my little corner? And of importance was try to, after having to visualize what I'm thinking is the solution, was to get a team of people that could buy into the vision with different expertise. Because the core of it, I'm a doctor. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not and all that. But to put up something that is going to be formidable, you need to surround yourself with expertise that will help you who first they buy into your vision and have the sort of commitment that you have to be able to take your vision forward. And that's how we for example, we have the Buchile Private Hospital, which is right in the center of Soshanguve.
Okay, and having done that, I understand there's now a plan to turn the soil on another huge medical investment. Tell me about that. That's imminent, right?
Yeah, it's imminent. It's been long coming. This is in the area of Hartbeespoort. It has been long coming. It was supposed to have been to come immediately after the Buchile, but Obviously, there's a number of barriers that you need to cross. There's a number of challenges that you need to cross, but nevertheless, what we're there and will be sort of starting or sort turning in the next few weeks. I think it's the 11th or something of June.
Okay. How, I mean, reflecting on the original hospital private setup that you established, right? What impact did that have on the community, making the point that initially you said, that was the problem. There's this huge void. You have the best of intentions, but if there's no direct healthcare, patients are going to be compromised.
No, there's a huge impact from the impact that we have. It's from just being there, for just being identified with the community and the community identifying with the hospital itself. That alone, let alone during the development, this employment creation, the convenience that you've created, now the employment that is sustainable and going forward. And I mean, it's just huge. And the fact that these things can be done within the communities.
So let's then talk about the new state-of-the-art hospital at Hartbeespoort. I mean, tell me more about it in terms of what actually will it deliver?
Yeah, look, it's an 80-bed hospital. When we define the hospitals, we define them according to the beds. So it's an 80-bed hospital. We intend to have some center of excellence in there because from where we stand, we would want to establish different levels of hospitals wherever the opportunity arises or wherever we identify an opportunity. And for that matter, we've got a national footprint ambition. So we're going to do that. So that will be, initially we start with the Center of Excellence of ENT, ear, nose and throat, and otherwise being able to generally give the services across the disciplines of medicine. And as we see what happens, how it grows, that tends to tell you now you must steer towards cardiology or steer towards, and that's the point. But from the onset, it will be a center of excellence, of an ENT center of excellence, and we see what else, what other excellence we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. So, you made a point earlier that at your core, you're a medical doctor. The fact that you've been entrepreneurial is by the way, but really you're there to serve. What then, in your opinion, what then has given you, what are the qualities that you've been empowered with that has allowed you to transition and now effectively not just deliver treatment, but to provide the type of facility that can deliver treatment on a mass scale? I mean, you've scaled it up.
No, look, it's a simple thing for me. For me, I live medicine and it's my lifestyle, and I would want to deliver excellence in whatever I do. So invariably, what drives me is what is it that can I do to make a positive impact as far as healthcare is concerned? Because that's my core discipline and training, and that's what I think I've been destined to do.
Just the last thing, right? And I'm not asking you to answer this directly, but there's been conversations now regarding the death of the medical intern, Dr. Aluti Mazwi, who's an intern who went to hospital. I mean, just bringing that up, not to talk about that directly, because that was not the plan, but there's a sense amongst many people that when it comes to public healthcare compared to private, that unfortunately we are in a very, very unhealthy state. I think some people have even described it as being in an ICU. I mean, why do you think that is, and how then do we ensure that we actually restore the entire healthcare system in our country to good health?
Look, from where I stand and my understanding, and when I look at a patient, I mean, a patient for me is a patient irrespective of public or private. And I mean, every single doctor has been trained to look after patients, not to look after private or public. So I think the power of that being, there needs to be some harmony between the private and public such that at the end of the day, it is about the patients. So whatever solution that we bring forth should be patient-centric, and unfortunately, the landscape is such that in private there must be some bit of profit to be able to service your commitments and things like that. But there needs to be harmonization of public and private so that each one can leverage on each other.
Well, absolutely.
In the best interest of patients. That's really what I would say.
And if we get that right, I mean, that's the whole debate about the NHI and many other things. So let's see how well we may get that down the line. I appreciate your time for now, Dr. Rampedi, from Township Roots to this healthcare trailblazer, and with the new setup now, the SOT turning happening in a week or two, I think the 11th of June, in fact. Best wishes. We love to reflect on people who are winning at their game when you've done just that. So much appreciate your time.
Did you hear that? That's the sound of your car about to cost you a lot of money. Sorry. The engine noise you should be hearing is the boat on your upcoming diving trip. But don't let cash flow hold you back. Do both. Get a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand. Apply online at nedbank.co.za today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
TUT ladies are on a humongous mission to play their hearts out. But Masandawana ladies believe they are unstoppable. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on the glittering action of Mzansi's women's football. TUT Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, I'm going to get to your WhatsApp voice notes in a moment or two, and I'll certainly take more of your calls too. In fact, we're going to start in Bloemfontein with Gary. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Ashraf.
Yeah, go for it. What's your point?
I think it's the first time we spoke, but anyway, it's fine.
It's the first time we've spoke what, sorry?
I think it's the first time we spoke, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Well, okay. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Go ahead.
But anyway, thanks for taking my call. And you know what? Cyril Ramaphosa is in America. And I heard on Kathy's show and on Tula's show that they want to forge ties. Then you get people, I'll just tell you first of all, I'm a customs and excise consultant, okay, with 40 years experience, with imports and exports.
Okay. And, you know, I listen to these people. They could know, I don't know if they have, I'm not sure, but, you know, they talk about the SUTU and stuff like that. You know, the SACU, the BLS countries, we used to send fabrics out to the SUTU for, you know, jeans and all that kind of stuff to do that. But the thing is, then they want to come get harigheid. But how? Gary, let me push you because we don't have much time. So, I mean, let's pick up on your last point. You're saying these people, hardigheid. Who are these people? Where's the hardigheid so we understand it? And what would you suggest otherwise?
I'm not being racist in no means. But I'm saying South Africans. I'm a South African. I'm a white English South African. And the people phone in. Then they say, oh, we don't need Donald Trump and we don't need that and this and that. Okay. I said on Kathy's show this morning.
All right. Okay, I got that. I'm gonna move on because I think we got the gist of what you're saying. I must tell you, I mean, I do agree with you. Listen, I'm very critical of many things of the USA, but one thing I'm not naive about to say, we don't need you. You know what? We'll just carry on with our lives. We don't need to trade with anybody, right? Life will carry on. It's never that simple. I wish it was. It is not the case. Gary and Bloom, thanks for that. Mike in Newlands, go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Just want to pick up on something in the interview with the De Klerk Foundation gentleman,
Yeah.
and I was hoping you might have pushed him on it. You know, he made a strange and very bizarre statement when he said we must reassure President Trump that we are not planning to take away any property. Well, you know, no, of course we're not planning to take away any property, but we might be planning to take it away next week or when we have a new government. It doesn't make sense. I mean, that's just a nonsensical thing to say. This is the real world of economics. But I would like to offer some points where I think our strengths lie and what we can do to get back on track.
Okay.
The first thing we could do is get rid of this Equality Act where we are now going to be reduced to putting down the race. If I start a radio station and you want to come and work for me, Ashraf, I have to ask you, not you're South African, no, I've got to ask you the color of your skin or ask you your race or what group you feel you're in. This is so out of order, it's ridiculous. The other thing is expropriation without compensation in the public interest. Well, you know, we have an agreement, India AGOA agreement, that we as South Africa have already signed, which says we will not expropriate property. That is the reason America did this trade deal with us called AGOA. We have reneged on that deal, and we didn't even have the courtesy to phone America and say, by the way, this is what we're going to do you mind? Never mind the fact they gave us all that money for nothing. And then finally, the obvious thing we can do is stop the court action against in the ICJ. It is outrageous that I hear doctors are sitting at home because we've got no money to pay them. People are dying in hospitals. Children are starving to death. 4 out of 10 go to bed hungry in our country, Ashraf. We have the highest stunted growth in the world, but we have 9 million rand or 90 million rand, I think it is, to spend taking a country to court which has nothing to do with us while our people die. I'm looking forward to the day when President Ramaphosa goes to a little shack here, which I drive past and goes to that shack and says, by the way, it's going to be another night without any food on your table, but listen, you can just eat some of our ideology in the meantime.
Okay, got that.
It's not on us.
Right, Mike, you made your point, and you've said something similar before. I just wonder whether if you're part of the audience picking up on any of the things Mike has said, to say, well, does he have a point on point 1, point 2, point 3, to say, seriously, would South Africa retract on what has been decided already on many of the issues that has been tabled there by Mike from Newlands. Right, let's get to some other callers. We may have Temba. I think we do. Okay, let's get to Temba first in the Klebecha. Hi, Temba. Hello.
Okay. Ashraf.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, man. Without wasting time, I know you're due for news. Let's pick up on Mike. Mike says we should drop the case in ICJ. It has got nothing to do with us. Is he a human being somewhere, living somewhere in this world? Does he really accept what is happening in Israel and Palestine? Otherwise, Israel killing Palestine like flies, starving kids to death. Does he think that is acceptable in a modern world as a human being? He's a savage himself, by the way. He's a beneficiary of apartheid system. And he thinks today he stands a better chance to develop himself and those of his ilk. And we should reject him. I do reject him very much.
And you've done just that. Well, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, the issue of the ICJ, it's interesting what Mike has said and maybe some others too, and looking at it purely from a pure transactional point of view. And yes, I think South Africa has done a lot of things that are wrong internally. But do we turn a blind eye from a position? I mean, I don't have to say much. Just look at 100 of the most significant people in the world outside Netanyahu and President Trump and see what people are saying about what's going on in Palestine right now. And we're in the midst of all of that. Do we genuinely walk away from that? Temba, thanks for that call. Let's get to other thoughts. And naturally, it's going to be about Trump and Ramaphosa, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and
let's see.
Guest as well as the SFM listeners. Much as we need a USA, just like other countries, but we need not be bullied. Donald Trump is acting like the Africa, the god of the world. We cannot tolerate that. South Africa is a sovereign country. The US must also have a mutual respect as well as understanding with South Africa. We need not be bullied. Thank you very much.
Well,
This is Anonymous.
Thanks, Anonymous. I mean, I agree with you on that. You know, if you go back to South Africa during the apartheid era, when the Americans actually supported that regime, and so did the UK, right? Does South Africa in 1994 or 1990, do we go to a situation to say, don't worry, Margaret Thatcher and others, we will deal with you guys because we want bread and butter? Or is the natural inclination of human beings to try and correct an injustice, even though it costs you money? It's something for all of us to consider, because I can't see us becoming another state of the USA only to try and make sure that we have food on our tables. Let's get the news. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, South Africa not obligated to represent undocumented foreigners, and Gauteng warned of a cold front from tomorrow. For SAFM News, I am Ondela, and a very good afternoon. The Department of Home Affairs says it has no legal obligation to formulate legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals in South Africa. The department was updating the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on issues of state-funded legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals. This includes its work in collaboration with the Department of Social Development on foreign individuals, including children who are migrants in the country. Western Cape Home Affairs Department Provincial Manager Yusuf Simons explains.
The Legal Aid Board, Chair, through the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, facilitate this entire process. So DHA, Home Affairs, is not involved in any way in arranging or facilitating their legal representation, Chair. So on this point, clearly it's not a function of the Department of Home Affairs or state-funded legal aid for foreign nationals. That resorts solely and squarely with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development.
The Gauteng Department of Education says the arrest of 7 girls accused of assaulting a girl learner from Bedford View High School should serve as a deterrent to other bullies. The learners from Bedford View High, Kensington High School, Queen's High School and Phoenix College were arrested after a video showing the group of girls attacking the victim went viral on social media. The department says the 7 accused have been suspended and are expected to make their second appearance in the Johannesburg Magistrate Court tomorrow. They each face a charge of common assault. The department spokesperson, Steve Mabona, says psychosocial support is being provided to the victim and the perpetrators.
We have started with the process of supporting the victim, and we can confirm that she is now back at school because we started with that psycho support. But also, you don't need to ignore the perpetrators because you also need to go closer to them and give the necessary support, because these are children and we are developmental institutions. We don't focus on curriculum only. We also assist in terms of nurturing, these children.
Build One South Africa says Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana must table a budget which will speak to the needs of ordinary people. Godongwana will be in Parliament tomorrow to table the 2025 budget for the third time this year. The revised budget will come after he reversed the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase following some parties' legal action. Build One South Africa leader Musi Maimane.
This budget could not come at a more crucial time. It cannot be third time lucky. It must be a budget that focuses on the future, gives expression to our priorities, and makes sure that the people are heard. National budgets have served in many ways in the political needs, and previously they were easy to pass because it was one-party rule. Now is the time to really make a budget that's not just a financial document, but it is a budget that tells us who and what the government and the people truly value. It must be a budget that says we shift power back from political elites to the ordinary South African.
The City of Johannesburg's Emergency Management Services has cautioned residents to use all heating devices safely and not leave them unattended to prevent fires. This follows a warning of a cold front from the South African Weather Service that is set to affect Johannesburg and other parts of Gauteng province from tomorrow. The city's EMS spokesperson is Robert Mulaudzi.
Our residents will be tempted to use all sorts of heating devices, things like imbaula, paraffin stoves, candles, to try and warm themselves. So in the process, they might make themselves vulnerable. So we are pleading with them to ensure that all these heating devices are not left unattended to prevent fire incidents. We're pleading with our residents to ensure that the brazier is used in a well-ventilated area. Before going to bed, take it out so that you don't inhale those toxic fumes which are coming from imbaula. Those who are using heaters, make sure that you don't leave it unattended with young kids. We've got our disaster management officials who are in all 7 regions of the city.
It has emerged that U.S. President Donald Trump's real estate company is looking to build a tower in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. At the same time, the Vietnamese government is in talks with the United States about how to avoid punishing tariffs. The BBC's Mickey Bristow has the details.
The U.S. President's son, Eric Trump, is expected to visit Vietnam this week to scout out locations for the tower. He could also oversee the start of work on a luxury resort and golf course being built by the Trump Organization outside Hanoi. Progress on these private developments coincides with negotiations between Vietnam and the US over tariffs. President Trump has threatened to impose a 46% duty on Vietnamese goods. For some, the US president is blurring the line between private benefit and public policy.
Recapping the top story, the Department of Home Affairs says it has no legal obligation to formulate legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals in South Africa. I am on Dilambana for SFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, PSL postpones award ceremony and a mix of youth and experience as South Africa A tour the West Indies. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Centurion has a crash near Old Johannesburg Road, the N1 northbound in Midrand, a crash before New Road, and Main Reef Road westbound in Crown has a crash at Press Avenue, and Riverview Road in Morningside, a crash at South Road. In KZN, on the N3 eastbound, a stationary vehicle before Ashburton exit, the M7 eastbound queuing at South Coast Road, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck before Market Road exit, and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend, the N1 outbound an earlier crash before Okavango Road has been cleared, but traffic is still slow moving. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 southbound queuing towards Racecourse Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
No matter our abilities, we can all play together.
It's always time to play on Takalani Sesame.
Wow! I love this game! Learning new things is the best part about having a friend who knows something you don't know.
Oh, yay!
We are all special in our own way.
Tune in to see what makes you special for the all-new episodes of Takalani Sesame. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on SABC2.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I've been asking since yesterday, maybe the day before, about Cyril Ramaphosa's strategy when he meets with Donald Trump tomorrow. And of course, he would never just do it on his own. He's got a complete brains trust that would, workshop and strategize exactly the different possibilities that may occur tomorrow and the stance he should take and the lines of action, right? So we'll talk about that, by the way, later on with Sherwin Bryce Pease around 5:20. Do not forget that, right? In the meantime, there's nothing stopping you focusing on the strategy that South Africa's president needs to approach or adopt for tomorrow. And here's one other one, because we've been talking about a meeting, a hookup of different sorts. And I just wonder, let me just test this out. What for you is the one word you would describe the actual meeting? I don't mean the content, the fact that they're coming together. Now, I did say it's a scrum. That's what I said yesterday. I said the best way I can describe it is a scrum, because just think of a rugby scrum and lots of pushing and pulling and to and fro and trying to get some advantage, isn't it? So for me, it's a scrum. What would you call this meeting of the President of the USA and the President of South Africa that will take place at the White House tomorrow? Your one word. In the meantime, there are problems abroad and there are certainly problems at home. And it is so sad there's not a day that goes by that we don't pick up one or two issues, from bullying in schools to fires to other people, being killed in mass numbers. And now the latest one about 4 toddlers, young people, dying very tragically in a fire in the region of Mayfair in Johannesburg. And apparently they were at a crash and there was this fire, massive overcrowding, I understand. At the bottom line to all of that at the moment is that 4 young children's lives have been lost, gone. Big tragedy. What do we understand by what happened? And as always, we often talk about lessons learned and honestly, how do they get implemented in terms of the future? Aziz Ali is a community activist in the Mayfair region that's in Johannesburg. Aziz, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Thank you. Of course, we speak to you at a very terrible time. You wish it was better news, right? I see the key part of even talking to you is the fact that you've been quoted by a piece that I saw shared by Fidel Haffajee in the Daily Maverick about, "We warned you." So what did you warn who about?
So I was the former ward committee member for development planning and urban management in Ward 58. That was between 2021 and December 2023. I resigned from that portfolio because of the threats that I got. My house was broken into, my laptop stolen, and all because I was addressing this issue of slumlording, hijacked properties, overcrowded properties, and I have a list of over 54 properties, and there's many more. There's many, 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 many more. And this particular property, number 22 8th Avenue, Mayfair, was on my list that was sent to the city of Johannesburg, the development planning team, the building inspectors, on the 30th of March 2022. I got an email back that just said they visited the premises and a contravention notice was issued. Nothing happened at all. Now, contravention notice means that whatever construction work was taking place on this property is non-compliant. It means they did not approach the city for approval. There were no plans submitted, and at that time they were taking maybe maximum 6 to 8 bed. It was a 3-bedroom. 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, which could accommodate a maximum of maybe 8 people. Okay. And they were literally taking out the inside of the property, just keeping the outer shell, and then putting up small rooms the size of, like a single bed. And obviously, this is the norm that's happening in Mayfair.
Okay, so you're saying basically in this case here, a home that should have housed 6 people or so, housed 32 people then, and you've given them the warnings, but besides them noting it, nothing's happened. So what happened on the day yesterday? What actually sparked off the tragedy?
So yesterday what happened was the people that are staying there went off to work, right? They go off to work, but then there is a lady that does not work, and what she does is she looks after the children of all the other parents in the house, mm-hmm. and we don't know as yet what caused the fire. I mean, the city's fire department and forensics and investigations and all are here to establish the cause of the fire, because this is now deemed a crime scene. And the fire broke out. And tragically, 4 toddlers under the age of 2 passed away. The children have now, we've just found out that they are burnt beyond recognition.
Sure.
So there has to be DNA testing done, and the place is cordoned off. So we have about 52 people now sitting on the streets with no accommodation, no place to go. We're scrambling around to provide meals and food and blankets and toiletry packs. And the only people from the city that came out was disaster management around 8 o'clock at night. And that's when I reached out to them to say, but we need your help. Please come and help us. There's no other city official that has come out, except now the MMC Mchwako has come out. And I've been raising these issues as well with him, directly, personally with him via Twitter. And he has blatantly ignored me. So
why do you think they've ignored, either ignored you or simply sent you a letter of acknowledgement and done nothing? Because if you're talking about, a 3-4 year period, right, then what rings a bell here is it straddles different political parties. So, the common accusation about it's this party, it's that party, well, we can throw that one out of the window, isn't it? Because it's different at different times, different parties have run the city, and the answer is still the same, isn't it?
Yes, it is still the same. So, Ashraf, I cannot account. All that I can tell you is that I personally have fought tooth and nail about this issue of slum loading in Ward 58. I mean, people are paying rent to someone, to an unscrupulous landlord that just wants to line his pockets. And the conditions that these people live in, it's appalling. And I always ask them, when I met these landlords and when they threaten me, I said, but all that I want to do is, these people are paying you rent. Make them live in better conditions. Ask yourself, would you allow your sister or your mother to stay in these conditions? It doesn't matter whether they come from Zimbabwe or Malawi. They are still human. Their blood still runs red when they get cut.
So how many different, first of all, it's a real tragedy and condolences to the family. And as you said, you can't even recognize these toddlers. It's just a horrific story, right? How many similar types of homes turned into slum type of overcrowded homes are there in the Mayfair suburbs?
I've got a list of 54, and that list has grown. I have one property that has over 290 people, and this property belongs to a reputable advocate that stays in Killarney.
Wow.
So it's shocking. It really is shocking that people are doing this and exploiting these people just for self-benefication.
So what needs to happen next? You mentioned, you being part of a local committee, or there could be a councillor. So there are councillors on the one hand. There's also a city functioning badly or not. There's a city, there's a mayor, there's an executive. Are you saying that it has not been a priority for them all these years, for them to say, we are going to demolish these establishments or these homes no matter what, because it just can't continue like this?
It has not been a priority at all. The only response for every single property that I ever reported was contravention notice issued. I went as far as investigating the notices that are put up on these properties to say they're now going to be converted to hostel-style dwellings. And I got written notification that the city has no record of such a notification being issued or notice that this property is going to be converted. So the question is, it boils down to, I think it's a word that we all hate using, or I hate using because I hate the word, corruption. Ashraf, it's corruption. You cannot tell me that a city of Johannesburg with such a large budget cannot enforce their own bylaws and issue a demolition order against a property that is non-compliant to put a stern warning out there to these slumlords that, listen, if you don't comply, this is what we are going to do. They cannot do that.
Well, as you said,
well,
if you can't do that, then you clearly have a broken city, which is what we currently have, right? What about? Just as we wrap up, what's been the I don't know if, the person who ran the place, and I'm not too sure whether you can even call it the crash boss or what, because you just said it's maybe not even officially a crash. What about that person, that woman? I think you made the point. What about the families and the community that came up together yesterday when they found out about the fire and the deaths? Is there anything you can tell us in terms of what they said and what they felt?
They are really devastated. The families are really devastated. I mean, they're living in very appalling conditions. They struggle to make ends meet on a daily basis, and now they don't have place to sleep. And we also have now families that need to bury four of their loved ones. But thankfully, we've had some organizations like SMYO, Amir Sheikh, the ADF chairperson. There's quite a few people that have come on board to assist and make this transition or this assistance quite easy.
Now, one can never wish an evil and bad thing like this to happen, no matter what. But we do look for silver linings.
Yes.
Do you think there's any good that may come out of this, and if so, what?
There's no good. Up until the people that are in these official posts actually decide to work, to do something for their communities that they've been voted in to do. Because there's absolutely no willpower in any city official to do anything that will make the city of Joburg a better place. There's absolutely no willpower.
Okay. No willpower from a place called a world-class city, from a world-class city to a lack of world-class African city. Aziz Ali,
Yes.
Appreciate your time. The community activist reflecting on what happened in Mayfair, Johannesburg yesterday. A home, 32 odd people living in a home that should not hold more than 6 people. A fire breaks out, 4 young toddlers dying in that blaze. A sad story, and as Aziz just said, there's like 50 similar establishments like that and in Mayfair, and nothing seems to be done about it. Now, what do you say? What does it tell you about your pulse is racing? It should, isn't it?
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, I'd like to get your thoughts as well as give me the one word that best describes the actual meeting. What would you define it? So I'm calling it the scrum. You tell me anything you want to add on to the horrific story of Mayfair, Johannesburg. Feel free to do that too. So tomorrow, finally, budget 3.0. Well, can you believe it? The minister will table the budget tomorrow at 2 p.m. We already know that the issue of the 0.5 percentage point increase, it's not going to happen, but there are implications, aren't there? Dr. Iraj Abadian with me, the Chief Economist at the Pan-African Investment and Research Services. Dr. Abadian, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and listening. Good afternoon to our listeners. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Good talking with you.
Thank you. Now, we know a lot has happened, from nothing getting passed to arguments and debates to some deals outside the GNU, but we finally can take it as a given that there will be no 0.5 percentage point VAT increase. So if we know that, what else do we know is likely to happen tomorrow?
Well, we know, Ashraf, that there is going to be a much larger gap if expenditure is not adjusted than 75 that is being floating around, and simply because since February, all indications are that GDP growth is going to be much less than what the initial budget had anticipated, and that means tax collection is going to be accordingly lower. And therefore, the gap is much larger, not only this year, But quite frankly, my main concern is in the next 2 or 3 years, because unless we turn the economy around, not talk about it, not moan about it, but do what needs to be done, tough as it might be, to get growth going, to get job creation, income generation, and tax generation going, we're going to have a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. So that we know, and to me, that's the priority that it has not received adequate political as well as technical attention.
So how then do we resolve that in the immediate term? Because I understand that the case for a VAT increase, when it was first tabled a few months back, was like, we need the money, we don't have the money, and that's the only way we can ensure that service delivery in certain highlighted areas actually occurs. So in the absence of that, what would be, in the short term, the shortfall in terms of loss of revenue income, and then how then do we overcome that?
Yeah, what we need to do, we have an immediate problem and we have a short-term 2 to 3 year or medium-term problem. And the immediate problem is got two components to it. On the expenditure side, the minister and the cabinet need to, and hopefully they have done, the trimming of a great deal of inefficient, unnecessary expenses. And of course, if we have time, we can go through it from the cabinet all the way down. And interestingly enough, Ashraf, in the cabinet, in the budget speech, there is a short paragraph highlighting that over the past 11 years, the government and the cabinet have spent enormous amount every year on another project on expenditure consolidation and management, and yet they haven't listened to any of those recommendations. They haven't done anything about it. So the minister is well aware that there's an awful lot of fat that needs to be cut out. And that does not mean cutting service delivery. That means a lot of expenditure management very differently. So that there is no option other than that. Mm-hmm. Because look, I mean, it is a little bit unfortunate, Ashraf, that whenever talk about expenditure management, immediately the politicians talk about cutting wages and cutting special relief and welfare. That is not where the focus should be. And the second part of the solution has to be a much more focused, intentional, as SARS has put it, and the Commission has been very open about it, that there are about 80 billion owed to of course he uses a much larger number, owed to SARS but not collected because SARS hasn't got the capacity and require funding, which now they have been given. So those are the two short-term interventions that need to be done.
And therefore, and I know in the build-up to this, there's been this issue of, cut down, the fat as has been described, but it's, that can't be done in one day. And the other is obviously cut out corruption, which also can't just end in one day, right? So having said all of that, what for you would be the pointers you'd be looking out for tomorrow that will help you form an opinion about whether this is a good budget or not?
I would find it a good budget if it begins with three segments, very specific and very focused. Not waffling and political language. One, immediate post-budget within 10 days of the passing of the budget, and we think it will pass this time around, third time lucky, there should be a national emergency about how do we take the growth, how we turn the growth from the current 0.5% to 3.5% to 4%. And that government cannot do. It got to be a little bit like COVID, how we attacked COVID, if you remember, how we had family meetings and business got to be that kind of urgency. In fact, for me, it's urgency of COVID to the power of 5, because a lot more people will die and suffer if we don't do it than COVID did. So that's one item. That must be item number one. Item number two got to be a list of where government is going to cut, not promise that we will cut. It got to be very open, transparent, that, for example, the overhead at ministries will be cut by half. And I think the nation should know that the cost to company of each minister is a multiple of the top paid CEO in the biggest and most complex corporate in South Africa. That cannot be correct. So start from that, and all the other nice to have stuff that has to be cut, and what amount comes out of it. The third part would be an equally detailed source, intentional focus on better collection within the timeline that we have, which is about 6 to 9 months.
Lots to consider from all of that, right? And I think you're quite right in terms of where we are in getting those things done. Do you get a sense, you mentioned the word, political talk, right? In terms of this budget, it came through initially that the Minister of Finance with Treasury were effectively deciding on their own. I'm talking about the original tabling of the budget, right? Do you get a sense now that this budget is a lot more consultative with the different political parties that make up the GNU, and I even said, what about those that were critical of the GNU but supportive of the budget being adopted as it stands?
Absolutely so, Ashraf. This is the most sort of democratic, literally, from a substance point of view, budget that we've had possibly in the history of South Africa, because even during the Nats, they were cutting and pasting as they liked. But over the past 15 years in particular, the culture of budgeting within the cabinet has been, against the advice of the National Treasury, I must add, that whenever tough decisions are to be made, don't keep spending, borrow more. Borrowing has become the kind of default mode, and therefore that has been absolutely neither democratic nor in the national interest, because now the public debt has gotten pretty much maxed up, which is very, very unfortunate. And it's a tough position to be, because 22 cents of each rand of government budget goes to servicing debt, which is not how service delivery should be done. So I think GNU has brought that element, but as importantly, citizens have got involved. Whether they like it or not, whether they are pro or against, doesn't matter, but they realize that there are tough decisions that affects their daily lives and service delivery.
All right,
and that got to do with how you do the budget and how put it together.
And let's end with a quick yes, no. You made the point about us treating this issue like how we treated COVID to the power of 5, with an absolute urgent revision of where we're going to go to try and engage, to ensure that we have growth from 0.5 to 3.5 or 4%, right? So, having said that, do you think it's going to happen? Yes, no?
Yes, I think it will.
Okay.
I think it will. I'm optimistic. Yeah.
Wow. There we are. Let's leave it at that, Dr. Azhar Jammine. Much appreciate your time on this issue, and let's reflect on where we are as, in fact, Dr. Eran Jabedian, the Chief Economist of the Pan-African Investment and Research Services. Much appreciate your time. Lots to reflect on that in terms of where we are as a country ahead of another important meeting. There's the scrum between Trump and Ramaphosa, but there's a different sort of scrum being played out in Parliament tomorrow. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Department of Home Affairs says it is aiming at significantly reducing the expenditure on court cases during this financial year. At least 8 clinics in the West Rand district in Gauteng are experiencing low to no water supply following a major water pipe burst on Rand Water's pipeline in Soweto. And fighting has broken out between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces and the city of Omdurman across the River Nile from the capital Khartoum. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, queuing towards Crown Interchange. The M1 southbound has a crash before Harton Drive exit, and Summit Road westbound in Midrand has delays at Blue Hills. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a stationary vehicle before Ashburton exit, the M7 eastbound queuing at South Coast Road, and the M3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg, stationary truck reported before Market Road exit. In Cape Town, Chapman's Peak Drive is closed due to high winds. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound has a crash at Hospital Bend. The R300 northbound in Mitchells Plain has a crash before the N2 highway, and 35th Avenue southbound has flooding reported at Bishop Lavis. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, let's get to sport. In fact, to me, I'm trying to see what your top is, because people are very concerned, and I can see not concerned, bad concern. They want to know what you're wearing, right?
Today.
So every day there's a lime green top. I'm trying to. They can check it out if you go streaming live. Check it out on Twitter feed and YouTube. SAFM, you'll find it. Lime green with an Italia, like a pistachio color. I don't know.
It
right?
is. It's actually
Tell me
Italia.
more. Yeah.
I'm building up. Well, I'm part of the team that is building up to the Euros women's side of things.
Okay.
So this is their jersey, Italia. Italy is my side, and yeah, I'm fully rooting for them.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to expect people to say, please, can you get Tumi to wear a top every single day? And can you
Every day.
And can you please discuss it as well? I'm just telling you. Right.
All right, then, let's start things off with football this hour, where the Premier Soccer League has postponed the 2024-25 season PSL awards, citing Mamelodi Sundowns' participation in the CAF Champions League final and the Club World Cup as their reason. Now, the league says that it will announce the new date and further information in due course. Meanwhile, CAF will unveil a new trophy and identity for the Total Energies CAF Champions League on Thursday. The final first leg will be played on Saturday, with the second leg scheduled for Cairo on the 1st of June. And the timing of this unveiling will definitely add to the excitement surrounding the decider, offering African football fans a glimpse of what will be at stake over the two legs in Tshwane and Cairo over the next 2 weeks. As for Manchester City midfielder Kevin De Bruyne says that he's unlikely to play at the Club World Cup due to concerns about picking up an injury ahead of his departure from the club. The 33-year-old will leave City after a decade at the club, having lifted 6 Premier League titles as well as winning the Champions League and the Club World Cup in 2023. Now, the Belgian is under contract until the 30th of June, which covers 3 Club World Cup matches in the United States. But De Bruyne says that he would have to look out for his own interests first. Meanwhile, Manchester United have begun preparations for their massive Europa League final showdown with Tottenham Hotspur and Bilbao, a game that could define this season under Ruben Amorim. And Matthijs de Ligt fitness remains a concern, but Leny Yoro and Diogo Dalot are expected to travel with the squad. And former United star Patrice Evra actually sent an emotional message to his beloved Red Devils, urging them to bleed for the shirt.
That's what I want from you guys tomorrow. Just fight, bleed for this shirt, for the fan, for the staff, for the people in Manchester, for the fan all around the world. Is no excuse. This is your duty tomorrow. I think your coach Amorim, someone I support, someone I believe in, even if we win or we lose. Give something, guys. It's going to be a tough game. Tottenham have also a lot to lose. They are in same position in the league like us. They didn't win a trophy, so this is a massive chance for them. But this is no excuse. We are Man United. Do you know how many fans going to travel around the world and believe they know they're going to celebrate after the game because they believe in you guys, no matter what. Because we can't do it. We can't do it, guys. So like I say, bleed for this shirt, the history. Think about the people, your family or whatsoever.
So do you think that is motivation enough for the players to give their all tomorrow, Ashraf?
All I know is, Patrice Evra, I'm almost certain that his father was a diplomat. Seriously, from Senegal to France, right?
Yeah.
So he's being very undiplomatic for the diplomat. We can win. But I think what doesn't come through in that sound is that he says he can't be at the game because his sister passed away and he's going to have to be at the funeral on the same time.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Tragic.
he's just saying, listen, as much as it's going to be the funeral day, my mind will also be with you guys, Man United, and we'll see how they will play against Tottenham. In cricket, the South Africa A side, coached by Wandile Gwavu, will tour the West Indies for the 3 one-day matches and 2 4-day matches between the 21st of May and the 11th of June, all taking place at the newly renamed Darren Sammy Cricket Ground. The youngest and arguably the most exciting addition to the squad is 19-year-old Luandre Pretorius. Even before the top run scorer for the South Africa's under-19s in the 2024 Under-19 Cricket World Cup with 287 runs at an average of 57.40 and a strike rate of 94.09. Pretorius had already been selected as the rookie pick for the Paul Royals in the SA20. In the meantime, Pakistan has confirmed that Bangladesh will go ahead with the T20 tour after it was put in jeopardy following a cross-border conflict with India earlier this month. Bangladesh was scheduled to play 5 T20 internationals from the 25th of May, but will instead play 3 matches from a date that is yet to be confirmed. And then finally, motorsport. Australian Formula One driver Jack Doohan has pleaded for online abuse of his family to stop. This is after being targeted on social media. The 22-year-old was this month dropped by the Alpine team after only 6 races, and he has been replaced by Argentina's Franco Colapinto, who finished 16th in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Italy on Sunday following a big crash in qualifying. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Okay, and we'll see what top you're wearing. People need to check it out and see, because they will. They're going to check you out on streaming live and see screaming live or streaming live. Either way, we'll see what happens. Right, more sport in an hour.
TUT ladies are on a humongous mission to play their hearts out, but Masandawana ladies believe they are unstoppable. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on the glittering action of Mzansi's women's football. TUT Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
The MK Party are calling for the resignation of Shamila Batohi. We'll talk about that in a moment. In the meantime, Paswane Mphatlele is with us, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. And you've got news local and global. But first up, news with Alexander Forbes.
Good afternoon to all your listeners. Alexander Forbes, the financial entity. The guys have given us a micro view of the full year performance. The numbers are looking good. They delivered robust growth. Looking at the earnings growth, their profits as per headline earnings especially expected to rise by 20% looking at their all operations. But their core operation expected to grow by at least 12%, which is positive considering the challenging environment thanks to their high retentions of clients, higher average assets under management, helping increase their revenue, managing their costs, and the stock is up 3%. Looking into the market, China has decided to cut their key interest rate level to support the economy and generally the globe. The market hasn't seen more hard data as they do a review on and a wait and see approach. Dollar remains at the lower end, so getting oversold and still at 100, supporting the likes of gold prices up 1.5% at $3,277 an ounce. Platinum trades up 3.3% at $1,035 an ounce. Oil prices hold lower, down 0.6, but still above a key level like the $65 mark at $65.10 a barrel. Meanwhile, South Africa, we've heard reporting from the US that indicates they plan for a workaround around the local black ownership laws to help Elon Musk Starlink business to operate. This is taking place before they meet with Trump. JSE is taking considerably a cautious look currently, still up 0.1 thanks to resource sector up 2.6%. Financials are down 0.9, along with industrials down 0.3. US equities are still in a wait and see as they figure out a catalyst, and they're currently opened lower, down 0.3%. Europe is doing well, all-time highs when you look at the DAX. FTSE CAC is up 0.8%. Looking at the rand, we've reached clearly below the 18 at 17.93 against the dollar, 20.20 against the euro, and 23.98 against the pound.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Paswane. We will connect again tomorrow, but it means we'll now talk about the MK Party and Shamila Batohi.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything.
But the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Tell you what, there's not a day or two that goes by without someone or the other commenting about the NPA and how successful or unsuccessful it's been, and therefore naturally the conversation moves on to the person who heads it all up, Shamila Batoy, in terms of what she's doing or what she's not doing. And now we have another call. The MK Party's a member of Parliament, Sibonelo Nomvalo, has joined in with many others, in fact, to explain why the MK Party themselves, they want Advocate Shamila Batoy to resign. So why do they want her to resign? Let's find out with the MK Party's MP and member of the Justice Portfolio Committee in Parliament, Sibonelo Nomvalo. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the listeners at home.
Okay, so you and your party wants Advocate Shamila Batoy to resign. Why?
Yeah, let me bring a context to our call by outlining the legal principle first in terms of what is expected of the NPA to do when they do their prosecutorial work. Number one, the NPA is a very critical entity in the value chain of the justice cluster. If they don't do their work efficiently and expeditiously, then the relevance of the SAPS will be as good as non-existent. Secondly, the NDPP has appeared on numerous occasions to the Portfolio Committee of Justice and Constitutional Development, wherein I sit. And she has proven through what she says that she is incompetent to run the office. One, she appeared last year for two things. She appeared to give a full update on progress that has been made in terms of prosecuting people who were found to be on the wrong side of the law by the Zondo Commission. And we discovered that there is no progress whatsoever, and there is no effort from the NPA to score success in that regard. Subsequently, we asked her about a very prominent case which happened, or which is being heard in Pietermaritzburg High Court in KZN, a case which relates to a political killing, which is a scourge that is rife in KZN. The case of Sindiso Magaqa, which is broadcast on a day-to-day basis, which is prominent, which is regular in the media spaces. She said she is not aware of what is happening in that case. Then the last one, which was the last straw, is when she appeared last week in the Portfolio Committee to give an update about the Omotoso case, because we raised concerns in the Portfolio Committee, as members of the Portfolio Committee, to say, how did the state lose such a critical case, and at a critical moment wherein the scourge of gender-based violence is rife? She came there when we asked her that, what have you done in exercising your right or your responsibility, which is entrenched in the NPA Act in Section 22, which says you as the NDPP can intervene in the prosecutorial work at any time to ensure that there's efficiency in that context. She confidently said she did not do anything. So that to us is a vindication of two sentiments, or of two narratives. Firstly, the narrative that is always painted by the police, that as the police, we do our work expeditiously, we submit dockets with prima facie evidence. to the NPA for them to continue with their prosecutorial work. And at a later stage, we'd get shocked when we see those perpetrators running around the streets. And then the second narrative that it vindicates is a narrative that we have as the MK party, that because of the incompetency of the current NDPP or of the current incumbent, that institution is highly compromised. And if we really care about the people of South Africa, and if we really care about the fight against crime in South Africa, we must recall, or the president, because he's the only one who has powers to initiate the process, must recall the current NDPP with immediate effect.
All right. And in terms of what you said, right, I mean, I know Shamila Batoyi spoke the other day and she made the point about the lack of resources in terms of where they were at the time that she took over to where they are now. Is that in any way a mitigating factor that means they are as hamstrung as a department as so many others, like schooling, like hospitals, in terms of healthcare, like city management across the board? Everyone appears to be hamstrung. Is that a convincing argument for you?
No, it isn't a convincing argument for us. The convincing argument from a scientific perspective is an argument of incompetency. To say there are things that are very basic, that at no stage where a competent person like Batoyi, with the qualification that she claims to have, can be found faltering. So to us, it's an incompetency. And she has said when she appeared in our committee, and even the judge, remember in the Omotoso judgment, that the judge has also made strong remarks about how the NPA has conducted itself in this case. You would remember that at some point, the NPA could not prosecute just a minor assault case. And a right-wing organization, a racist organization like the Afro Forum took over that case, and they successfully prosecuted it. So how do you call that? That's not lack of resources. It's lack of a will to exercise the statutory obligations that they must exercise.
Okay. In fact, I want to ask you whether, besides incompetence, as has been suggested, there are deliberate attempts to ensure that high-profile people do not get prosecuted. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Ultimate Value is opening an account with 34 benefits while getting her a treat. Ultimate Success is getting her the ballet shoes that you promised. With the 2,000 Rand balance booster, Ultimate Goals is living life on your own terms with a credit card with 0 monthly fees. Absa Ultimate Banking is about having it all in one account for 98 Rand per month. Apply online now. Your story matters. Absa, subject to affordability and scoring. T's and C's apply. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, I'll get to your calls in just a moment and your WhatsApps because I really want to know what you have to say. But we're going to wrap up now with the MK Party's MP and member of the Justice Portfolio Committee in Parliament, Sibonelo Nomvalo. So here's the thing. Besides all that we've already discussed, do you also get a sense that certain political heavyweights are not being prosecuted because they are political heavyweights?
Of course. Having outlined everything that I've outlined, the only impression that you will be left with from an objective point of view is that the NPA, one, there are high possibilities that it is politically contaminated. Secondly, I will just cite a few cases for you. You remember that after the ANC adopted the principle, the step aside the principle, a number of comrades were prosecuted in the ANC, especially when they go to their conferences. I take, for instance, the case of Zandile Gumede. When did they lay charges against her? And where is that case now? I'm just making a typical example. That is why we said in the portfolio committee that the NPA has been reduced to a ball to fight or to play a political football rather. So it is highly compromised under the hands of Shamila Batohi. Hence our call that with immediate effect she must be removed, and we must get a competent somebody who is going to run that institution with the highest level of integrity.
Okay, let's see if your two wishes will be granted. Not today. Let's see what happens down the line. Thank you for your time, Sibonelo Nomvalo. So there we are, calling for the resignation really of Advocate Shamila Batohi with the NPA. Do you think is it a case of yes for you or a no? What do you think about that push really by the MK party? Right, I'm going to get to your thoughts because I certainly want to get a sense of what your pulse tells you right after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's feel your pulse rate, isn't it? What about the issue? We're going to get to Ramaphosa in a moment. But in fact, absolutely, a lot is about that US trip. Imboneni in Annandale, go for it. Hello.
Oh, thank you very much, Asaf, for taking my call, and good afternoon to SFM listeners.
Thank you.
Based on the fact of tomorrow, as it's one of the biggest events or something that we're going to hear from the budget and also the president in the United States, Cyril Ramaphosa, is the fact that we want him to revive our democracy and also to grow our economy, and he must stand firm against Trump, because many things has been said, different things has been said about what can be transpired tomorrow regarding these matters of meeting Donald Trump. However, Alphas, allow me to take you through to one of the best ever interview in the United States that was done by the late President Mandela with Coppel. And if you remember, if it come a question like the issue of Israel and Palestine, you will remember a question was posed to President Mandela to say, what is that you do, and being supported by the Palestine, Gaddafi, and then the Cuba, Fidel Castro. He has explained, Sarah, without biting the tongue, to say that they have done so much for us and they've assisted us to overcome the apartheid regime. So why I'm saying this is the fact that Cyril must stood firm. He must not be intimidated with the question of who must withdraw from the ICJ or however the issue of expropriation without compensation.
That's what you think is what he needs to do. Let's see what actually does happen. Thanks for that, Imboneni. Let's get further comments. And yes, it is about Ramaphosa.
Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Ndomso from Waterford in KZN. Perhaps not a strategy, but if push comes to shove, Ramaphosa must just tell Trump to come and visit South Africa. If it means him coming with his SEAL Team 6 to protect him, it's fine. But he must come to South Africa and see for himself what's happening, so that maybe some sense can be knocked into him. Because really, these arguments, they're not helping anyone. Baseless arguments, they're not helping anyone. Thank you.
Thanks, got that. Well, that's the point made by Dr. Naledi Pandor, the former Minister of International Relations, when I chatted to her about a week ago. If you want to check out that podcast, you can Google it or go to sfm.coza, you'll find it. Well, that's what she suggested. But interestingly, in the last couple of days, if you look at some of the key members of the Brains Trust that is with the president there, they all talked about effectively this is going to be a discussion around the economy. And I don't know to what degree can you actually ignore what American President Donald Trump has not just said about South Africa, but actually done in terms of literally airlifting, I was going to say hostages. No, they're not hostages, but they're certainly refugees. How do you ignore that from a conversation? Can you?
Typical of Michael Newlands, Ashraf. Typical of him. Typical of him. Typical of him. Typical of him. Just typical.
Okay, you've made your point. Here's another.
Yeah, Ashraf. I'm sure it's John in Bloemfontein. I'm sure even my child knows every time Michael Newlands come on radio, she already knows what he's going to say. He's like those cartoons, Cocomelon. They always play almost the same songs every day. So Michael Newlands sounds like that. He needs to come up with some new stuff, man. He's been saying the same thing. For the past 5 years I've been listening to SAFM, he's been saying the same thing. He needs to come up with new things, please. We are tired of hearing the same thing. AGOA, what? No. He needs to come up with new things.
Well,
please.
look, AGOA is a fairly recent thing, but I do agree, and I've told him this, that often he will repeat the same things all the time, and that really doesn't make for good radio or good calling from his side. But AGOA, maybe I would concede that maybe he's got to bring it up because it is so relevant for now.
Good
afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makwarashnias from Tendo. You know what, Ashraf? It is amazing that we are hearing a lot of people saying Ramaphosa is a skillful negotiator. He will know how to deal with Trumps. You know, Trump does not care whether Ramaphosa is a skillful negotiator because Trump does not respect anyone. Trump is Trump, you know, whether you are a skillful negotiator or what. But he will still do what he is known for, you know. I'm expecting another blockbuster comedy show tomorrow, just like what happened to Zelensky, you know.
Well, if it happens like that, it won't be a comedy show, not for South Africa, would it? It would be dramatic if we're having anything similar to the Zelensky show. But I think the point, you know, yesterday I chatted to Kaya Sitoli, listened to that podcast as well, and he made the point by and large that, you know, you can't tackle Trump logically because he doesn't deal with the logic, your logic. So, you know, let me try and look at a sporting analogy. You know, you playing by football rules, by soccer rules, and then he plays by rugby rules, and you're trying to play the same game. So there's no way you're going to measure the game plan by what he may or may not do based upon what you think. It is like that. Sure, it's complicated.
You see, Ashraf, in my opinion, Ramaphosa shouldn't have gone there. He should have waited until he was invited to America. Now, he mustn't go and allow himself to be fooled or, in fact, to be humiliated by Trump. He must stand his ground and put his facts on the table phlegmatically. That's all. Thanks, Willie Nkuma.
What do you mean by invited to America? He just has been invited to America, and that's why they're there, right? Isn't it? Unless you're just missing something, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt around that. There's another comment. No, in fact, we'll play those comments later. We can't do that now. Right. Let me just tell you, we will chat to Sherwin Bryce Pease coming up in about 10, 12 minutes' time. Do not miss that because he will set the scene for us in terms of everything that's expected to happen tomorrow and perhaps what's happening even now. Remember, it's sort of just about afternoon, maybe just not quite yet. It's sort of getting to lunchtime in the USA. What are they talking about? The South African Brains Trust. Let's get the news. Here's Greg Kos.
Thank you, Ashraf. Ramaphosa looking forward to Trump meeting and woman gunned down outside Cape Town court. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's looking forward to a positive meeting with his counterpart, US President Donald Trump, tomorrow. Ramaphosa spoke to the media outside the South African embassy in Washington. The talks between the two countries are expected to touch on issues including trade, tariffs, as well as an issue of contention relating to Afrikaners who moved to the US, claiming to be targeted by unfair and racist laws in South Africa. Ramaphosa says he's expecting a good outcome.
We are hoping to have really good discussions with President Trump and his fellow government colleagues. I'm looking forward to a really good and positive meeting. And we're looking forward to a very good outcome for our country, for our people, for the jobs in our country and good trade relations and to normalize relations.
The Department of Home Affairs says it's aiming at significantly reducing the expenditure on court cases during this financial year. The Home Affairs Minister, Leon Schreiber, appeared before Parliament's Portfolio Committee.
And I think that is in and of itself, in the current budget environment, a very clear reason for us to focus on this area and make sure that we reduce the burden of legal cases on this department. I would say it is part of the spending reviews and the efficiency gains that has been much talked about. And I think when the presentation follows, we will see progress in that regard. I don't think we have figures yet on the financial side, but I think this is a work in progress, and hopefully during this financial year, we'll be able to quantify the savings that have come from this work. But it really is, I suspect, hundreds of millions of rands that we can save.
At least 8 clinics in the West Rand district in Gauteng are experiencing low to no water supply following a major water pipe burst on Rand Water's pipeline in Soweto. The Leratong Regional Hospital and the Dr. Yusuf Dadoo District Hospital are also affected. In Johannesburg, several public health facilities such as the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Braam Fisher and Princess Clinics are impacted. Gauteng Health Department spokesperson Mutaletali Modiba.
What we do know is that we've got some clinics and some hospitals that are impacted in the Western District and also in the Johannesburg District. We have already activated contingency measures to ensure that private water tankers can be dispatched to the affected facilities as quickly as possible. We are also reaching out to the local authorities so that they can prioritize health facilities and assist with dispatching water tankers.
Police are investigating a case of murder after a woman was shot and killed outside the Blue Downs Magistrates Court in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says upon arrival at the scene, they found the woman inside a car with gunshot wounds.
The victim was declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel. The motive for the attack forms part of the police investigation and arrests are yet to be made. A murder case was registered for investigation.
Fighting's broken out between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces in the city of Omdurman. The BBC's Will Ross has the latest.
Omdurman has been the scene of heavy fighting throughout the two-year war. Streets, homes, schools and shops are littered with ammunition and missiles, some of which are unexploded. The Sudanese army retook the capital in March and is still trying to secure all of Khartoum state. But that doesn't necessarily mean peace for the millions of civilians trying to rebuild their lives in the ruins. The Sudanese Air Force used to dominate the skies, but the paramilitary rapid support forces recently changed tactics and by using drones have been causing havoc in areas they don't control.
The top story, President Ramaphosa says he's looking forward to a positive meeting with his counterpart, US President Trump, tomorrow. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
And in your sports this hour, CAF to unveil Champions League trophy on Thursday and a mix of youth and experience as SAA tour West Indies. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Germiston queuing towards Geldenhuys interchange. Main Road northbound in Lone Hill has delays towards Lachlan Road, and Steve Biko Road northbound in Pretoria has a crash before Nico Smith Street. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before the M41 gateway exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck before Spaghetti Junction, and the M7 eastbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, Voortrekker Road in Goodwood is slow moving. That's at the N7 Jakes Hadville Drive. Liesberg Parkway outbound, slow moving through Observatory, and Old Paul Road eastbound in Bellville, queuing towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! As they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So what's moving the national pulse for you? What's really getting you thinking to say, goodness, man, fingers on the pulse, or your pulse rate's raising? I'd like to know what it is, right? You can connect, you know that. I'll take your call from around 5:45 onwards, right through 0614 104 107. You can tweet now, hashtag The National Pulse, just tag SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. And as always, we'll take your WhatsApp, text or voice notes, keep them to 30 seconds, please. Right, we'll chat in a moment regarding... Interesting, the conversation about Shamila Batoy. We'll chat about the NPA and that Omotoso case and whether it's been botched or not, right? That comes up in a moment. But Sherwin Bryce Pease comes up shortly as well. But he had a chat with South Africa's President, Cyril Ramaphosa, earlier today, ahead of clearly a momentous day, whichever way it goes, tomorrow. This is what the President said.
We're always ready. We are hoping to have really good discussions with President Trump and his fellow government colleagues. I'm looking forward to a really good and positive meeting, and we're looking forward to a really good outcome for our country, for our people, for the jobs in our country, and good trade relations, and to normalize relations between our two countries.
I tell you what, maybe I'm making fun of it, but I don't think I am. If Ramaphosa comes out of that White House scrum with some major concessions in terms of the relationship, even if they defer to say, yes, we'll meet, yes, I'll come to South Africa, yes, maybe I've been misread, I'm talking about Donald Trump. If he comes out of all of that with his not just reputation intact, but enhanced, right? I mean, am I being trivial in saying that's as important as winning a World Cup? You may think I'm talking nonsense, but just think about it in terms of where we are as a country and what that could well mean if it comes up with a victory. The question is, I don't really know what a victory is. We'll find out soon enough, isn't it? Right, let's get on to another issue of win and lose, I suppose. The National Prosecuting Authority says it will appeal against the judgment which found the Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso not guilty. We know that, right? They said his presence is not required. Now, the attorney and legal analyst from Donda Attorneys, that's Malusi Kulu, is now on the line to give us an analysis of what happened. I mean, just understand what the story really is and where do we go from here. So, Malusi, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners at home.
Thank you. So how do you explain what has happened where this person is in your country, then goes home, and then the NPA say they're going to appeal from a distance? How do you explain all of this?
All right. I think the national spokesperson for NPA, he put it clearly that as per procedure, your physical presence, if you are the accused and you are acquitted and the NPA is appealing, is not needed. What happens is it's just an exchange of papers. This will be drafted in the Supreme Court of Appeal, and then there'll be arguments. Then, if the court says the judgment was wrong, if it reaches that point, then they'll make an extradition application with Nigeria, and then he'll be brought home if that extradition succeeds. So that's why he's saying it's not a problem. The fact that he's gone back to Nigeria is not a problem, but as soon as the court's application succeeds, then they'll make an extradition.
But I mean, you also made the point, if it succeeds, I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong, South Africa's battled with extraditions. South Africa's been battling with extraditions, haven't we? Oh, I think we've just lost our guest just for a moment. The line just... Okay, Malusi, we do have you back on the line, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I think we just lost you for a second. I was asking the point that when you talk about extraditions, that correct me if I'm wrong, South Africa's battled with succeeding with extradition orders, haven't we?
Yes, I mean, you and I know, and most of us know about two high-profile cases before this one. We know of the case of Bushiri. There was an extradition application in Malawi, but he appealed against it. I think it's still in the process again. Then the AKA case, there are two Nzimande brothers in Swaziland or Swaziland where you have extradition agreement, but they are appealing against it or they are opposing the extradition application. So it does have its challenges. It's better if the person that you need is in the country, but
at the end of the day, Omotoso was declared an undesirable person to be in the country by Home Affairs. He's overstayed his stay as Home Affairs has declared, so he's gone back to Nigeria because.
Okay, so I mean that sounds complicated. What about the merits of the case? I mean, if we go back to the very beginning, what was he charged for, and why have we been so unable to pin him down on that? I mean, the technicalities around that.
All right. Initially, the charges were about 64 charges, including human trafficking, rape, or sexual assault in his church. But what is the problem with this case is the fact that the judge put it clearly that as much as it looks like there was a case, but the prosecution failed to cross-examine the accused and his co-accused. Because remember, there are two co-accused, two ladies. So the judge said, look, there are about 34 counts of different types of sexual assault or human trafficking. But when it was the time for the prosecution to cross-examine the co-accused, they only used 2 hours in the morning and it was all over. So the judge couldn't really see how the case could be supported in terms of the evidence because they weren't able to show that he's not telling the truth because that's the purpose of cross-examination, to show that yes, you're an accused, we've got a case that we've proved against you. Now that you've testified, we are saying you're wrong by this and this. And so that's the problem. Now, here's the question, Ashraf, that I have on my mind since the beginning of this acquittal. The question is, how do you appeal when actually it's the prosecution who made a mistake, not the judge?
Exactly. Well, help us with an answer there. Because clearly it was botched from the NPA side in terms of prosecuting. So it's a whole botched story, and that compromises them, don't they?
Yes, it makes it difficult, but I think that we must also give the NBA the benefit of the doubt. They've now hired the best team. They've even got a senior counsel from outside NPA or two that they've put back in the case. They've looked at the records, about 2,000 pages. But the problem is there's no new evidence that will be bought. You're going to use the same evidence that you have. It's like if you remember algebra, once you've made 2 mistakes or 3 mistakes in the first steps of getting to the answer, the whole answer is wrong. So I don't know what new things they will bring, but they can't bring new evidence. Maybe the approach will be different. But at the same time, there might be things, because it's a question of mistake, there might be things that the judge may have overlooked. Maybe that can help them. But let's see how it goes when it goes up here.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think you'd like to highlight before I let you go?
I think I would like to highlight the fact that hopefully, not necessarily, saying maybe one wanted the Omotoso to be found guilty, but for every GBV-related case or sexual assault, hopefully the NPA will be able to bring the best they can and the best approach. Because in this case, Ashraf, there were 4 prosecutors that were involved. The first one, he quit meeting the case, and then there were other prosecutors. So it makes you wonder whether they had the same case strategy throughout. Maybe this might have been one of the problems. So hopefully the NPA will look at these cases in a different light and make sure that the right job is done, even if the person is found not guilty. But at least let's see that the preparation was done to the best of the ability of NPA. Because
that's the preparation or the lack thereof, or the botched case, does have an impact in terms of the morale of the work of the prosecuting authority, as has been discussed already earlier on. So much appreciate your time, Malusi Kulu. Thanks for your time. Legal analyst from Donda Attorneys. You may want to add your own thoughts on that issue. Feel free to do just that. So looking at perhaps for you, one word to describe that meeting. I'm calling it a scrum. I'm talking about Trump versus, do I say versus Ramaphosa and Ramaphosa? It is versus, isn't it? So I'm calling it a scrum. You can tell me what you think. We'll chat to, we'll certainly come across to the USA pretty shortly with the SABC reporter coming from there. We'll do that in a few minutes' time. But in the meantime, I want to get your thoughts right after this.
The Morning Brief.
What's the ultimate deadline to which we can hold you directly accountable? All of Hammanskraal doesn't have water by this date, XYZ of this year.
As much as the mayor, I want to say by December. So the September deadline, remember we're already 3 months behind schedule, and this is a contractor that gets paid. So they must be performance managed as a contractor. But for me, as the mayor of residents that don't have clean water in their taps, by December, and this is now, if worst case scenario, by December 2025, when those families have Christmas lunches, they must be able to get clean and drinkable water from their taps.
That's Dr. Nasiphi Moya, the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so what is happening in the USA? What's happening in Washington ahead of this big scrum that I call it tomorrow? With me, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, the SABC News correspondent based in the USA. Sherwin, good to connect with you. I must tell you, when I watched some of the videos of you last night, I'm like saying, I need to be there because, there's certain events you want to bear witness to, and clearly you have center stage, don't you?
I'll tell you, this is a big delegation in town from South Africa, but the weather's also not bad here in Washington, Ashraf. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, well, maybe. All right, I've called it a scrum, the meeting up of Trump and Ramaphosa, and to say we think of a rugby scrum. What would you call this meeting up?
I think it'll be a face-to-face introduction of future possibilities, right? These are not people that have not spoken to each other before. You'll recall President Ramaphosa spoke to Donald Trump once he defeated Kamala Harris in the election in November. They spoke again soon, just before the Zelensky meeting at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. So there is a relationship that has started, but there is so much further to go in terms of this bilateral relationship. The presidency has described it, Ashraf, as a platform to reset the relationship moving forward. There was, of course, that executive order about egregious actions by the Republic of South Africa as it relates to white Afrikaners, as it relates to certain international positions, foreign policy positions, be that the ICJ, Israel, allegations of genocide, or South Africa's peace dividends and peace negotiations as it relates to the war in Ukraine. So there are synergies that South Africa is seeking to emphasize in the relationship, but there is also a broader economic relationship that is under threat based on those other peripheral issues. So addressing those peripheral, those vexing issues, the white Afrikaner resettlement issues, but also not undermining the broader relationship in terms of the economic imperatives that faces the South African economy, whether it's within the AGOA framework, outside of the AGOA framework. Is there a new bilateral deal that the South Africans need to put on the table? These are all the things that will become clearer in the next 24 hours.
Now, interesting. I mean, different people have different opinions about what may or may not happen, but I think the more important one is what is actually going to be put on the agenda. And interesting, if I heard probably Clayson Monyela and maybe with Vincent Magwenya, the president's spokesperson, they sort of leaned on the point of a financial trade relationship conversation that's going to take place. So do you think that is the case? And my question to you is, how do you then ignore what has just happened not even a few days ago with a whole lot of people from South Africa who are now residing in the USA on the basis of how Trump has viewed how we run our country?
Ashraf, the sense I get, having spoken to the Claysons and the Vincents of the delegation, is that they don't want to focus on what is not faced in fact. Right, the Afrikaner issue has been addressed. They've told them that this is not true. There is no genocide in South Africa. There is no land expropriation in South Africa without compensation. So to keep banging away at that drum is a frustration, certainly for the South African delegation. They want to talk about what is real and what is and the future that is real. And that is going to be based on expanding South Africa's economic relationship with the United States. South Africa just had some disappointing data that came out recently in terms of unemployment numbers that went up. You're seeing the IMF say that the South African economy is growing at around 1.2% this year. That is not enough to breach this big divide in terms of addressing the huge inequities in South Africa. And so they really want to be laser focused on expanding the relationship that has been established in terms of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. But as you well know, there is a real risk that AGOA could go away. Donald Trump has a penchant for undermining free trade agreements. Just ask the Canadians and the Mexicans that are currently in a free trade agreement with the United States, and yet he's imposed unilateral tariffs on various industries in those countries. And so the message is clear that AGOA might go. The question is, what is South Africa ready to do in its absence? And what we are understanding from the likes of the Parks Towels and the John Steenhuisens and the Kombutso and Chabenis and the like, is that they're briefing the president currently at the U.S. Embassy in Washington, at the South African Embassy in Washington, about having something in his back pocket. If it's going to relate to rare mineral deals, or is it going to relate to expanding agricultural exports to the United States? We don't know. But the posture you are getting is, if AGOA goes, we have to be ready for what next.
Okay. Well, you sort of partially answered what's going to happen next, which is, so they meet tomorrow. What time, U.S. time or South African time, do they actually meet?
My understanding is it could be any time from 12 noon, 6 p.m. your time, to 8 p.m. Your time, which is about 2 p.m. We have not received a specific time for the meeting. We also don't know the format of the meeting. We don't know if they're going to go immediately, as has been the recent convention at the White House. The two heads of state or head of government is welcomed at the door. They're then going to the Oval Office, and suddenly you're live. We don't know if that's going to be the scenario, or if they'll meet first, have a spray of cameras, say hello, say a few things, let the media exit, and then later there's a possibility of a press conference by both. But we have not received any indication as to which one it'll be, or if it'll be both. I will pass that on as soon as we know the information. You also talked about the agenda. We don't know specifically what's going to come on, because if you've watched those freewheeling press conferences that President Trump is accustomed to doing, he takes questions from all the gathered media in the room. There could be South African media there. There could be international media there. Sometimes they want to talk about domestic issues. They might lob some questions about genocide at South Africa's president. We don't know how that will go, because it's real reality TV. So it could be really interesting to watch, though, were that to be the case. But as I say, in terms of exactly the logistics of tomorrow, we have not been briefed exactly as to how that's going to
And that makes it even more difficult, because there's an X factor that we have no idea, right? So in terms of the briefing today, what do you know about the type of briefings that take place where the president is briefed? I would think looking at all sorts of eventualities, including a potential live press conference, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, so look at who's in the room, right? You've got Ronald Lamola, so the focus there will be sort of ICJ, Ukraine, what's the latest in terms of South Africa's geopolitical foreign policy positions, and how do those align with the United States? Kombutso Mchabeni was very critical in terms of the mediation as it relates to the Ukrainian issue, so she will be informing the president about the latest on that score. Then you've got John Steenhuisen, who's the agriculture minister, and he will be focused very much on expanding the already $1 billion export relationship just in terms of agriculture that South Africa enjoys with the United States. And so he'll be talking about areas of expanding that relationship. Parks Tau is kind of the man in the room and the man in the moment. The Minister of Trade, Competition and Industry and Competition. And of course, this is where the minerals deals comes in. The question of tariffs, right? It was initially sort of 30%, but then they drew it back to 10%. How are they going to counter that tariff? Do they want to get rid of that tariff? The only way to do that is to put a new deal on the table and get the president to back off on these punitive measures that have been imposed on countries around the world. And so Parks Tau is very much going to talk about the economic relationship moving forward. And then, of course, you've got this G20 albatross around their necks. The U.S. is not engaging at the highest level, and they want Donald Trump to come for that leaders summit in November. How do you get Donald Trump to the table, given what he said needs to happen first, right? He said they need to deal with all those bad things happening in South Africa. But they're like, well, it's not as bad as you say it is. So how do they convince him that what he's saying is not true and get him to come to the G20? Those are some of the big wins that South Africa is seeking to achieve come the end of that meeting
Well, let's stay with that. I mean, you made the point initially, South Africa, if they preferred, they would not even talk about the refugees there and just ignore that for the moment. But what happens then if Trump brings it up? As he could well do that anyways, but I want to talk about it. There's no way they're going to ignore it, can they?
Sure. I think if you open it up to the press, that's going to be the focus of the American media for sure. That subject is going to come up. The question is, I've been saying this in the reportage, what's the balance between we will not be bullied and asserting South Africa's foreign policy, but also, the broader economic relationship that you do not want to undermine by being, upsetting your hosts in a sense, and a host that is easily upset by people that are a bit too direct. And so there are some icebergs in the water that South Africa's president would have to navigate, but I think given the president's experience in negotiating South Africa's transition to democracy, I'm sure this will be a little bit of small fry for him.
Do you really think so? I mean, a lot has been spoken about that, which happened like over 30 years ago, as you're well aware of, right? But that point about attaining the balance, I mean, how much do we understand about, attaining this balance that you refer to based upon Ramaphosa's famed negotiation skills up against a Trump who negotiates in a way that we don't quite understand?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's less about that, but more about what is true. And it's easy to point to the truth. I mean, point me to the genocide. Invite the media, the international media, to come to South Africa. They won't be chaperoned as perhaps they might in places like North Korea and the DPRK. Come and see for yourself. Find the genocide, because what the president needs to assert, that were there to be a genocide in South Africa, as the president of the country, he would deal with it. I mean, it's very simple, to push back on what is just not grounded in fact. Yes, you can talk about the crime issue in South Africa, but this is an easy hurdle to scale in terms of what is true and what is not. And I think the international media, if you read broadly the coverage of this issue, they have pointed out that what the president of the United States is saying is not borne out in the facts on the ground.
But he's doing it anyway. Just let's then wrap up. You made the point about different wins, and is there a Ramaphosa trump card that we haven't quite spoken about?
Yeah, it's called your golf handicap. And
you raised it yesterday. I saw that.
Right. It's really going to be a relationship built on the two personalities in the room. Are they going to like each other? Donald Trump often talks about how he likes Emmanuel Macron, or he likes this guy, doesn't like that one so much. And so leaving that meeting with Donald Trump going, this is a good guy. I really like the way we engaged. They're both business people. They have they like the same things in terms of hitting the middle of the fairway. So one imagines that they're striking up a rapport between these leaders is going to be beneficial to the future relationship. What is not going to happen tomorrow is a deal is not going to be signed tomorrow. There is no pending signatures on any deal that is going to be presented. This is the beginning of a conversation. Some ideas are going to be put forth. And then, as Gwede Mantashe, the acting president in South Africa, was talking about, they will then come back and discuss further in terms of how to build those agreements so that the two, the principals of various departments can then sign those agreements. So we're at the beginning of something new. A reset in the relationship is how the presidency has described it. But don't expect us to walk out with, we've signed, sealed, and delivered. That's not the case. It's we're going to continue. We've now reset the strategic relationship. We will be talking at all levels of government.
Okay, let's end with that, and maybe that last point that you made, focus on the personal relationship. I think Trump even described the Syrian leaders as a really handsome guy. So your point is right. How do you get him to connect with you on a one-on-one basis? That would be the biggest challenge. Just the last thing before I let you go, there's been a sense that for many people that South Africa is going into the USA confident, almost overconfident. What do you glean from your conversations with the Brains Trust? I mean, the communications team, the strategists, and perhaps even some of the other ministers, if you've had the chance to engage with them in terms of where we are as a country.
Without question, there is a sensitivity about this moment. You're trying just to get interviews from the ministers. Park Staal, for example, has refused to talk to any media until after the meeting. The president, though, coming to talk to us, as he arrived at the South African embassy to get briefed by his ministers, came over to our cameras, came over to our live shot, seemed very relaxed. There is definitely a level of comfort, I think, within the delegation. I think they are very well prepared for this moment. It's what you cannot plan for that I think is probably going to be the big concern, and that will come down to how President Ramaphosa responds in the moment when in those live settings where any question could come up.
And of course, sometime around tomorrow, this time, we may be talking to you post the event, pre the event, or as and when it's just happening. It really is that type of a live moment in the world, isn't it? Sherwin Bryce-Pease, much appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting as always here and giving us a sense of the national, in this case, the international national pulse. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
In the headlines of this half hour, as we've been hearing, President Ramaphosa says he's looking forward to a positive meeting with his counterpart, Donald Trump, tomorrow. The National Director of Public Prosecutions has acknowledged that the prosecution of apartheid crimes has been slow, and the Israeli foreign minister's rejected criticism by the UK, Canada and France of Israel's intensified military offensive in Gaza. A full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Melrose queuing towards Colette Drive. Summit Road westbound in Midrand has delays at Blue Hills, and Eskempatleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Moot Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale, the M7 eastbound queuing at the N2 highway, and the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before the M25 commercial highway. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound queuing towards Kuburg interchange, the R44 southbound in Stellenbosch queuing towards Annandale Road, and Gunners Circle in Eppings where crashes reported at the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive junction. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
To me, as we talk about the misery of Manchester United ahead of their Europa League final with Spurs tomorrow, there's a bigger event for South Africa, and that's the African Champions League final at the weekend, right?
Yeah, the CAF Champions League final. And CAF are set to unveil a new trophy and the identity for the Total Energies CAF Champions League on Thursday. The final first leg will be played on Saturday and the second leg scheduled for Cairo on the 1st of June. Meanwhile, the Premier Soccer League has postponed the 2024-25 season PSL awards, citing Mamelodi Sundowns' participation in the CAF Champions League final and the Club World Cup as their reason, and the league says that it will announce the new date and further information in due course. Meanwhile, Amajita coach Raymond Daka says that preparing thoroughly for the FIFA Under-20 World Cup in Chile later this year and avoiding mistakes that could have derailed their plans for the Africa Cup of Nations tournament are amongst his priorities.
We are going to the meeting, I think, around 26-27 for a draw and the workshop, and then we're coming back, we'll know exactly where we are. But in essence, we look at, we always have to look at the calendar at home. We always also need to look at the FIFA calendar, because much as we're having good relationship with the teams, but you must also understand and squeeze yourself where it allows us to or not have squabbles and so on. So it's something that we agreed with the technical team to say we rest for next week. That other week, then we'll sit down and pen it down as to who do we want to see ourselves playing, who and who before we go, where do we want to play, and then we'll be able to submit in the office.
Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates continue live without Jose Rivero. Today, they visit SuperSport United in the Betway Premiership at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. It's a dead rubber for the Buccaneers, who have a guaranteed second spot finish in the league, while for Matsatsansa, a season to forget as they find themselves deep in the relegation zone. They're 14th on the log with 26 points level with Cape Town City, who are 15th. So they'll definitely be desperate for 3 points or a point to walk away with that one so that they can lift themselves up the league, and that game gets underway at 7:30 this evening. Also in action today is Manchester City, and Pep Guardiola says that City's final 2 Premier League matches are massive, but if they don't qualify for the Champions League, then they won't deserve to. City face Bournemouth tonight, and with a win today and at Fulham, it will be enough to secure a place in the top 5, but currently they're outside of the Champions League qualification places. Also in action today, Crystal Palace, who are still in celebration mood from the FA Cup win, face the Wolves tonight, and kickoff for both matches are at 9 p.m. In cricket, the South Africa A side coached by Wandile Gwavu will tour the West Indies for the 3 one-day matches and 2 four-day matches between the 21st of May and 11th of June, all taking place at the newly renamed Darren Sammy Cricket Ground. The youngest and arguably the most exciting addition to the squad is 19-year-old Luandre Pretorius, and even before being the top run scorer for the SA 19s in the 2024 Under-19 Cricket World Cup with 287 runs at an average of 57.40 and a strike rate of 94.9. Pretorius had already been selected as the rookie pick for the Pearl Royals in the SA 20. In the meantime, Pakistan has confirmed that Bangladesh will go ahead with the T20 tour. This is after it was in jeopardy following a cross-border conflict with India earlier this month. Bangladesh was scheduled to play 5 T20 internationals from the 25th of May, but will instead play 3 matches from a date yet to be confirmed. And finally, in tennis, the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center will undergo an $800 million upgrade, with the project set to be completed by the 2027 US Open. Ashraf, before I go, I'm sure you saw the new trophy, the Betway Premiership trophy that was handed over.
Yes, I did see it.
A lot of people had a lot of things to say about that design. What are your thoughts about it?
Forget the design. I don't even like trophy changes, and I've told you this the other day.
Yeah.
That means there's no legacy. So I saw when Sundowns held this trophy aloft, and there's no emotional connection to it. Whereas there's a greatness when, for 100 years, all the teams say, I want that trophy.
Regardless of a new sponsor or not?
It should not be a sponsor's name. I just think so. It should not be linked to a sponsor. The trophy should be the trophy. So you can have Betway sponsoring it, but it's the PSL Cup League trophy. It should be that, right? I'm thinking of golf, and you've got the green jacket at the US Masters in Augusta. Can you imagine now the sponsor is yellow? So they're going to change it to yellow. It's crazy. So there is no emotional connection to it.
I see.
I think.
So you don't have any thoughts whatsoever regarding the design?
I never looked at the design at all.
Okay.
Because of the lack of emotional connection to it.
I get you.
Well, and you? What about you?
I find it interesting. I find it very interesting, but I think for me, I'm very old-fashioned. I like, those trophies that have those ears on the sides. That's like a trophy. But very interesting design. Maybe we're moving with the times.
Well, with your big ears trophy, you're talking about nostalgia. You and I are, in a way, so on the same page.
Yeah. With that said,
Marawai, why did you think a plastic bag and tape was a solid window replacement after that smash and grab? And why does it sound like a kite every time you hit Puma 60Ks? Marawai, why aren't you insured with Santam, the insurer that covers theft or attempted hijacking? Get your car covered online in just 2 minutes or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. T's and C's apply. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
As a medical doctor, I've dedicated my life to helping others. Being a regular blood donor, I was shocked to learn of my low hemoglobin levels, which prompted further investigations. My diagnosis of myelodysplastic syndrome meant that my only chance of survival would be through a stem cell transplant. Finding a match was easier for me than for most patients. However, not everyone is so lucky. If you are between the ages of 17 and 55 years, register with dkmsafrica.org to become a stem cell donor and give someone out there a lifeline. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
You are listening to Night Talk.
Taxi violence in South Africa has a long history. Why has violence and the taxi industry in South Africa become so inextricably tied?
And it's a problem that has been happening, at least since the late 80s when the industry was still regulated. And in actual fact, I would like to just regard it as an industry that has deep historical roots in terms of the violence, dates back to the apartheid era, and also one of the things that I've recognized through my research over the years is actually what I call the state's failure to integrate the industry into the formal transport system, which continues to operate under stiff competition among between taxi associations.
Dr. Siabulela Fobosi, who's a senior researcher at Fort Hare University.
Night Talk, Monday to Thursdays, 10 to midnight.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, I'll get to your calls in just a moment. I certainly want to know what you have to say about all things Trump and Ramaphosa and everything else. But for now, Jimmy Muyara heads the Actors ahead of his own show. Jimmy, you have a story about Sasol.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. I certainly do. Sasol had a Capital Markets Day today, which is effectively an invitation to the capital markets and to investors to come and engage with investors on various topics. And of course, Sasol has been on the receiving end of some concern around how they're going to continue their operations, their emissions, what's happening with their US operations and all sorts of other things. So we got quite an interesting update from the team at Sasol there. It's not a result results update, but it is more around where they are seeing things and how they are seeing things shape up. So I've got a conversation with the Sasol Chief Financial Officer, Walt Burns, around that particular capital markets day that took place today. Just out of interest, the Sasol share price loved what was being said today, and I look at the performance of the share price. We were back above 80 Rand today for the first time since probably around March, April of this year. So clearly very positive sentiments from that perspective. The share price closing up more than 6% on the day's trade, in addition to yesterday's 7% that we saw. So sort of earlier in the month, I'd say the Sasol share price was just around the 60 Rand range. Now we're back towards the 80 Rand range. So lots to look into there around that update and to try and understand what's been happening there. Then we've got a conversation with the team at Orbis. This is, of course, the offshore division of Alan Gray, around how to deal with markets, market fundamentals, and where we look at things like valuations, where valuations become very important. We've seen markets start to factor in valuations when looking at how share prices are trading and how companies are being priced at the moment. So going to have a conversation with the team at Orbis around that, and then we've got a conversation as well around the Vodacom Maziv deal. That deal, of course, not going through from a Competition Commission perspective, and we know that the Minister of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition coming into or stepping into that conversation and lodging an appeal to understand why that deal didn't go through. So I want to look at that. I want to take a look at why the ministry is getting involved from their perspective, but also what that means for the deal itself going forward. And then we've also got a conversation as part of our Agri Tuesday feature, taking a look at a significant achievement by the team at TrueCape. TrueCape has been around in South Africa for a little over 2 decades, and they've just hit a significant milestone on one of their very specially manufactured or specially grown apples that they've been cultivating and growing for the last 5 or 6 years into the international market. So they've just hit a milestone around that. We're going to speak to them as part of our Agri feature and try and get a sense of what's going on there. Let me give you a quick summary of the markets, though. They have had a much better day today. I think the sentiments around what could be potentially unfolding in Washington related to South Africa have given the Rand a bit of a boost as well, alongside the fact that we've got that budget speech coming out tomorrow. Markets might be anticipating some positive movements. The Rand is at 17 Rand 93 against the dollar. I'll come back to that in a sec. Let's look at the indices or the equity markets around the world. All of the equity markets in Asia and Europe were in the green, with the biggest gainer in Asian markets being the Hong Kong Hang Seng, up about 1.4%. The CAC 40 in France was up about 0.7%. Quick look at the FTSE, up about 0.8%. South African markets are all share up about 1/3%, with the top 40 about 1/3% as well. The biggest gainer on our local front was resources. They were up about 3.5%, and industrials and financials were down. So industrials were down about 0.4%, financials down about 0.8%. But the resources really came through for us today. If we look at some pricing on the resources side of things, palladium is back above $1,000 a fine ounce, as is platinum. It's at around $1,050 a fine ounce. So big moves on the PGM side that are benefiting our local resource counters. Brent crude still $65.17 a barrel, and the gold price $3,278 a fine ounce there. If we look at those currencies that we looked at a little earlier, as I said, the Rand against the dollar, 17 Rand 93. 1 euro will cost you 20 Rand and 18 cents. 1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand 47 cents, and 1 British pound, 23 Rand 97 cents. So just below 24 Rand there. 1 Bitcoin, 105,000 US dollars per coin, around 1.88 million Rand. That's stronger Rand there, giving back or reducing rather the cost of a Bitcoin in terms of South African Rands. Before I go, a quick look at, just out of interest, what's happening on the Rand front at 1793. The last time we were in this sort of territory was November, December of last year. So this is pretty much the best performance that we've got on the Rand year to date. I'm going to look at that with Chantal Marx a little later on when we come back. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, you talk about the Rand, lack of bounce maybe, or bounceability. We'll talk about that on your show and then see what impact it has tomorrow. The SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Moyaha coming up from 6 to 7 o'clock. Right, I need to get to you. What are you feeling right now?
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Some of the tweets, Thoughts Rhyme says America is our second biggest trading partner. And there's more. I mean, there's a couple other comments about Zwelicha saying, sure, the NDPP is ineffective, inefficient, and correctly the EC bungled the Omotoso case, but to suggest that the South African Police Service is always delivering prosecutable cases to the NPAs is far-fetched. Okay, that's an interesting one. And Noel Crow is saying, agree, there's definitely a level of comfort at the moment. Right, let's get to some of the voice notes. In fact, talking about Omotoso, here's one.
Hi, Ashraf. You're speaking to Carol. I'm calling you from Atu. My problem with this case of Omotoso is, why do we think that what the judge has judged is credible? What makes her credible? What makes her judgment credible? That bothers me, number one. Number two, it sounds to me like instead of the judge focusing on the case, she focused purely on performance evaluating the prosecution. Why did they need to take more than 2 hours? Why? What if one question was enough? Why didn't she see that? Did it appear to her like it was not an effort that was made? So in my mind, she completely lost focus and she decided to performance manage the NPA. And if she had issues with the NPA herself, she should have said so. I doubt her merits. I doubt her as a judge. Thank you.
Okay, wow. You know what? You're going to get the entire country thinking about just that. So I'll leave it at that because you put down your case. I wonder.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Kagiso from Mafikeng. Look, Ashraf, I think what we are also missing, the analysts and citizens in general, is that normally in these type of meetings, there's a whole lot of negotiations that would normally take place, behind the scenes before such meetings could be set up. You would find that already, the behind the scenes meetings have already indicated the compromises that South Africa is willing to make, and America is also willing to make certain concessions. And a meeting like that would normally be held. So it is possible that they can actually find each other,
Yeah, I don't think actually anybody's saying nothing happens behind the scenes. I think Sherwin made a point. What he said is, they don't know at the moment, what actually is on the agenda. Is it a meeting before the meeting? Do we only see the public gathering in front of the TV cameras? But there's a lot of real negotiating that takes place without us actually seeing it. I mean, all that and a whole lot more, isn't it?
Good evening, Ashraf and the team. I just want to find out something, man. The tiger, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, has been acting now as our state president for a couple of days. And I know that the presidents would normally have some perks that do not go away for the rest of their lives. Is the tiger going to qualify? Oh, I hope, man. I hope. He's my favorite politician ever. Great show as always. Cheers.
Why do I think you're saying it with a bit of a laugh? I'm just checking. I don't know why. I think you're saying it with a bit of a laugh. My favorite politician ever.
Hello, Ashraf. We shouldn't be running after America. We should do what Ibrahim Traore has done. We should stand firm and we should defend what we have. In fact, we should have another president, because these guys, unfortunately, they're just towing the same line. They're looking after the interests of what the big guys have left behind, the Europeans and the Americans. We should chart our own course.
Well, I mean, but is it as easy as that in a world of multilateralism where just about no country, give me one country that can actually operate under the sense of splendid isolation, then I want to know who's that country, isn't it?
Evening, Ashraf. I think our president should start off the conversation with Mr. Trump saying, Mr. Trump, I see that Moody's has downgraded your ratings. What's going on there?
Yeah, I can just imagine you putting that question to Mr. Trump and how Mr. Trump responds. No, you don't want to get yourself into trouble about something that's not your business, because you are negotiating a deal for your country, isn't it? Right, more from you on the National Pulse.
Extraordinary doesn't just happen. It's built brick by digital brick. With every connection, every innovation, every leap forward. A cloud that scales with your vision. Security that earns your trust. AI that empowers smarter decisions. IoT that connects what truly matters. Connectivity that bridges every gap. We're not just building technology, we're building the future of South Africa. Stronger businesses, thriving communities, a nation connected, empowered, and ready to lead. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Start your journey at vodacombusiness.co.za. Vodacom Business. Further together.
TUT ladies are on a humongous mission to play their hearts out. But Masandawana ladies believe they are unstoppable. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Do not miss out on the glittering action of Mzansi's women's football. TUT Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 25 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One, and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, there's a lot more to come. In fact, I'll get to Thokozani in just a moment. Here's a quick one that certainly gets me thinking.
Evening, Ashraf, Grant from the Free State. Just listening to the chat now, I think the biggest thing about the wording of the South African farmer of genocide, that's the only thing is it shouldn't have been called genocide. They've just said now that bring the president and show him there is no genocide. That is true, but it's not genocide that's happening. He'll be horrified if he has to be taken to where farm murders have taken place and how people are chopped up, women are chopped up, women are raped to death, babies are put in microwave ovens in front of their parents. It's savagery. It's not genocide. Savage.
Yeah, but I think the word, I hear what you're saying, but the word genocide is a specific targeting of a community or a grouping within a country, and that's the difference between just, people being killed, which is horrific. There's every day, not just crime, but even poor service delivery undermines what we do as a people, never mind what ethnicity we are, isn't it? Okay, let's talk more about Ramaphosa. Thokozani, go for it. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, what's your point?
Yes, thanks, Ashraf. I would say to answer you, tomorrow it's an office orders for Ramaphosa and his group. So, yeah, it's an office orders. Maybe it's going to be a positive one or a negative one. But I am certain that Stevenson will go for positive orders and they're going to trade very good. And sadly, it's going to benefit the minority. So, it comes back again that we should address this thing of land redistribution so that we can share the economy equally.
Okay, but you think that's going to happen tomorrow? I doubt it very much. Thokozani, at the best, our president, will invite that president to say, come here, come and see for yourself what we're doing. Michael in Gqeberha, hi.
Ashraf, I'm even laughing before I say what I need to say. Why are we clapping and cheering over a PR exercise? What exactly is South Africa going to tell Donald Trump? What are they going to say? If South Africa needs money, they need to go to the IMF, World Bank. They need to go to America. So if you need help, you come and beg us for money. So what exactly can you come and tell us? This is just PR exercise. Let's not get excited over PR exercise. Come on, man. Let's get real. If we want to be real, let's stand firm, like Ibrahim Traore is doing. Apart from this, forget all this PR.
All right, it's all PR. I don't know. But Traore, I've been following certainly the story of Burkina Faso and him. Many suggest, we know what he's doing outwardly. Some are saying it's not all his roses as one may suggest, okay? But we'll talk about that too. Shatta in Cape Town, go for it.
Good evening, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Right, your point?
I'm good. Ashraf, when Omotoso when we woke up in the next morning and he was arrested by Home Affairs because he was an illegal immigrant in the country, I said, here comes extradition. Look at the convenience here. He gets arrested tonight. 3 hours later, NPA says we are going to appeal a case. the convenience here, in my own theories, is that he was arrested to be extradited so that he doesn't come and face up the music.
Okay, got
That
that.
is the conspiracy theory that I have.
All right, conspiracy theories abound. Thank you for that. Let's get to as many further comments as we can as we get to the end of the show. Right, here's a couple more about the NPA.
I couldn't agree more with the MKP representative talking about Shamila Potok. You must know things are so bad, even those ones who have got a lot to lose are also calling her for her removal and her incompetence. She has been the worst. Name one case, high-profile case, that she has been successfully prosecuted under her time. She is the worst ever.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Please, the MK party leader must understand that Zuma is the person who should be blamed for the performance of NPA now. People who were investigating, good investigators who were linked to the NPA, DSOs, were removed. And now Zuma knew that there wouldn't be any synchronization between the police and the NPA. That was his intention. That's why they are performing at this level.
And maybe that's the point, without mentioning the name Zuma, that Shamila Batoy made the point that when she got involved, there was a huge deficit in terms of the functionality of the MP. I mean, seriously, does she have a point?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Mashobane in Pietermaritzburg. Ramaphosa is in the US. I hope when he's there, he doesn't gamble with our sovereignty and our minerals. He doesn't bargain with it. I don't trust him. Thank you.
Okay. How many states are there? 50, 51? Going to be another state? No, it's not going to happen, really.
Hi, Ashraf. My name is Les Rima. The financial aid from the US and the AGOA is more important here in South Africa, as the Western European, more especially the USA, have got more than 600 of companies here in South Africa. Therefore, it is more important to make a trade relationship with the Western European, like USA and Britain, rather than to make it in China, because China will never make it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you don't want to have an either or. I mean, you want to keep everybody on board, don't you? I think. You don't want to be isolationist, I think.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Mtsete here in Tsala. Ashraf, the heat has already started in America. Starting from the welcoming of the president and his entourage. The welcoming was so poor. West today, the visitors were verbally attacked by Mr. Joe Pollak, the right-hand man of President Trump. He says they come all the way from South Africa for wrong reasons, also to try to convince Donald Trump about the situation. Look like fires have already commenced even before President meets Trump. Seems Americans are on flames. Elon Musk has not yet commented.
But if Pollak is the right-hand man, why isn't he the ambassador to South Africa, as is his a position he coveted? Absolutely. Let's end with this, Ashraf. Everyone is using the genocide word to diminish the struggles of the white farmers here. You don't need genocide to qualify for asylum. You only need your life to feel threatened, or ability to practice your religion or live a normal life without feeling in danger. That's true for the white farmers, from Jen in Cape Town. Jen, in fact, it's Trump who's using the word genocide. Just think about who's asking the questions there. Seriously. Okay, that's the show. Tomorrow is going to be tumultuous. We have the budget speech. At some stage after all of that, we will have Trump and Ramaphosa. Scrum or no scrum. They will meet up, isn't it? Thank you for listening to the National Pulse. We'll do it all again tomorrow. Listen to the podcast, all available now. We've tweeted it out, and also go to safm.coza. You'll find it all there, and you can share it amongst your chummies and have a debate about it all night long. Here's the news with Greg. It's 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Ramaphosa looking forward to Trump meeting in Israel defends Gaza operation. Good evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's